Almost late to my own stream, huh? On a Saturday makes sense, though, doesn't it? Either way, yeah, Happy New Year. I hope you're doing fine. I'm doing all right. Neri just left, just like about 20 minutes ago. It was a fun 2 weeks. It was pretty good, um, pretty nice chilling and everything. Um, so he won't be around for the stream. Safe landing, Nerys. Beyond that, I'm just gonna open up with some yapping. I mean, what did you expect, right? Yapping. That's what I'm here to do, and I'll do it for better or worse. So anyway, it's early. It's very early for me. So all you're getting is an out of bed look, with whatever is left from like Friday's very light makeup, I guess. After a bath as well. I mean, I did refresh it a little bit before I started streaming, but just the eyebrows a little bit. That's all. Which I'm very fond of, actually. I enjoy that I decided to shape them myself, and it came out looking okay, and I'm really happy about that. So, you know, I prepped them up a little bit. Anyway, yeah. So after that awkward intro about eyebrows and how I spent my Christmas, um, what is this about? It's about lowering my microphone's volume. There we go. And then it's also about checking to see if I feel like camera, which I don't. I really don't, honestly. But hey, there you go. Camera, whatever. Have your fucking 5 minutes. I'm still looking down because that's where the thing is. I will change the setup eventually. I promise you. So good morning. Hope you're having a nice cup of coffee. I am. So. hmm. Right, so enough of that. Honestly, enough of that. It's too early in the morning for me to be presenting myself to you. It's too intimate. I can't take it. I cannot take it. Instead, I'll vape and drink coffee, and um, and with my raspy morning voice, I will just comment on shit that I'll find. No, I have already found. This is what we've been listening to. Knight Rider 87 Verts. Um, Good song. I mean, I use it often. I like it, and you should like it too. Nah, I'm just kidding. But no, I got two videos of interest here, particularly to me, actually. And I think I'm gonna start with this and go into this. So in reverse order of appearance. I watched a bit of that, as you can see, and I already found it like extremely interesting. Um, and I wanna watch it with you. And you know how this goes. This is just probably just criticism and my opinions on someone else's opinions, and that's all. Um, and let's hope that it's nothing like let's hope that I don't have to like drop it, because that's gonna mean that like I'll stream for less, right? I'll stream less. Is the correct way to put it. It's still morning. Just let me get my bearings, okay? Let me get my bearings. So legal stuff, you know how it goes. It's like another person's work. I don't intend to any copyright infringements or whatever. I'm just using it for whatever let's suppose can be used. And yeah, if there's any problem, just let me know, and I'll do what I can to to straighten things out, and blah blah and blah blah blah. You know all that shit, right? I probably don't need to even say it. So let's get on with the show, right? I'll be muting as usual, and then I will be unmuting to comment. And the first thing I'm gonna do is a sound thingy. I want to see if like
Hey everybody.
I think sound is all right. I don't think I need to tweak it according to my indications. But you will tell me. You will tell me if there is any issue, and if you don't tell me, then that's on you. As simple as that. And yeah, I don't know how long I'm gonna be streaming, but I'm definitely gonna try to watch both of these videos and comment on them. All right, this one looks short. Let's see what it is about then together, shall we? Um, right, there's gonna be some mishaps because wait, let me change mouse first of all. Don't this one is like charging basically still. All right, right. What was I saying? I don't even know. You know what? Yeah. Let's go. And yeah, I'll mute myself and I'll let the lady talk, and then I'll talk about what she's talking about. Okay. All right. Okay. So.
Hey everybody, I'm back with another video. Today I'm going to be talking about e-girls, specifically the reasons why I am no longer an e-girl. But I think it's an important subject to talk about. You know that song, E-Girls Are Ruining My Life? I think everybody thought it was some kind of ironic statement, but arguably
No, nobody thought it was an ironic statement. No, it's actually it's true. But yeah, they definitely like that culture, that whole industry around it. Yeah, definitely has ruined some people's money situation.
e-girl culture is ruining elements of people's lives. And I'm going to talk about why.
Since I used to be one, I feel like it's my responsibility to call out this behavior and take accountability for enabling this culture myself and being an active negative contributor without knowing the very real world implications, detriments, and consequences that such actions can have.
And how it hurts women and men collectively for different reasons. I have a Twitch channel. I used to stream for 8 to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I made money.
Holy shit. Holy shit. That's a lot of streaming you've been doing. You've been a busy little bee, haven't you? That's something. This is educational for me as well. Not because I want to be an e-girl. I am far far beyond that, both in terms of appearance, I guess, and in terms of capabilities at the moment, um, and also morality, I guess. But yeah, it's interesting. 8 hours a day, huh? That's some pushing you're doing there. Okay, respect. Whatever it is you were doing, you were really into it. All right, let's see.
Not as much as some very popular female streamers that might come to your mind.
And I'll speak about them later.
But I made enough to support myself. And then I made more, chasing numbers, being trapped in a never-ending cycle of narcissism and a heightened state of self-worth.
There are plenty of ways that being a woman on the internet is dangerous. Being on the internet in general opens you up to the most evil of people.
Look here.
Oh, okay. Give me a second.
Being anything on the internet literally opens you up to a lot of dangers, and dating as anything can also fuck you up pretty bad, as we all have discussed here. Wow, some heavy subjects I see right there. But I'm not gonna interrupt. Let's see.
Wait.
Being able to say whatever they want about you with no consequence.
Show me your TV's mercy, please. No.
But it has physical dangers too. I used to have a P.O. box so people could send me gifts. I saw a lot of popular YouTubers and streamers doing that. People wanted to send me things. I let it happen. Someone I knew from my stream moved across the country to my city so he could be closer to me. This didn't terrify me. The culture of Twitch makes you want to tear down boundaries. The thing about streaming is that it's so personal.
The culture of any MMO does that as well. That's a fair warning. It's not just Twitch. It's even VR chat as well. There's lots of things that you can do on the net where they will have that effect. Yeah, it's not just Twitch. It's not just being an e-girl. But this is not to subtract from what Ellie is saying, though. Not at all, actually. It's to strengthen the point.
People want to know everything about you. What'd you have for dinner? What are you doing this holiday? What are you doing this weekend? Where are you from? I was putting myself in danger by just having a P.O. box with my zip code, and I had no idea.
That's the thing though. So these questions, I know, these questions are questions that supposedly you shouldn't be answering. But I'm from the 90s, and like, whenever I would see another human in Ultima, for example, back then in the day, I would definitely ask them, hey man, like, where are you from? Like, because the culture was different. And I think it was more innocent in that regard, at least on the surface level where I was skimming, like a little skimmer that I am. And, it was customary to just, if you became friends with a person, you would be like, so, where are you from? Oh, Greece. Oh, USA. Oh, holy shit, dude, I've never been in the USA. And you would exchange, you would have like this very strange little cultural exchange of like things and words, and that would that shaped my English, that shaped like a little bit of my personality as well. And even to this day, quite innocently, even though I do understand why there are reservations about answering such questions, I will usually ask like, so where are you from? So what's your story? Like, let's sit and have a chat, because that's the beauty of it for me. And I hate that it has been um, mutated into this gateway to being preyed upon, potentially. And it also blocks me because then I feel bad when I do, like, I'll go Final Fantasy or I'll go in Guild Wars and I'll chat with someone and I'll be like, hey, so where are you from? What are you doing in life? What's up? Just making conversation just because I'm social. And people are like, they're tightened up and they're like, and I hate that. I hate what this has become. Anyway.
Yeah.
This pseudo parasocial relationship between someone on a screen and someone in a chat can turn into obsession very quickly.
I once had a supporter that would sell his plasma
to be able to tier 3 sub. And though I told him that that's unnecessary and not to do that, I couldn't stop him and I wasn't going to refund that sub.
This was my full-time job. It was how I supported myself and my mother and my pets at the time. The longer you are a persona on the internet, the faster you disconnect from the real world and your true sense of self. Your life becomes a show.
Oh, late to that party, Ellie. You should see how it is in MMOs, and especially like the one I can speak about is mostly is obviously Final Fantasy because that's where I fucking lurk, let's say. Where their character becomes their life. The personality they give to their character, and not in a roleplay fashion, by the way. Um, it's just that like MMOs enable people to just have a different personality if they want to display that and like live that fucking fantasy, and it enables them to just appropriate it more and more and use it more and more up until they just don't. They themselves don't even know where the separation begins. And also the opposite. Some people are very very able to separate, in which case you just don't know anymore who you're talking with. So this is such a huge issue, and people are so prone to this, especially lately, especially like from 2025, let's say, but even later, like even from 2030, even I'd say, So people of those age groups, they fall into that so easily, and I think it's because of like how it's because of how society is at the moment, I guess, because of circumstances, but also because it's so much easier to pretend. It's so easy to pretend. Anyway, I'm sure that Ellie is going to tell us all about that.
For the masses, for your customers, your consumers. Your job is to keep them consuming your content. And the more popular someone becomes, the less they care about you as an individual.
Because numbers are everything, and you're just one person.
I love being a content creator. It's what I've always wanted to do. Since I was in elementary school, my dream was to be a movie director
and a TV show host.
When I learned about streaming, I really thought that I could make it into the world of entertainment.
I went to college for media production and management with a minor in theater. But once I started streaming, I didn't really gain any new skills.
Just be active on social media. What's on social media? Women being sexy. And you have people like Amaranth in interviews saying, you could have your tits out. To say, you're not going to have as much money as me.
You're not going to be as successful as me unless you have your breasts available to be seen by the public.
Mass gaslighting and grooming. That kind of rhetoric seeps into your mind like a poison. Everyone in this culture has been poisoned. We can't help it. We're inundated with it. Propaganda, sex, political discourse, cancel culture, mob mentality.
Social media is poison, and it's contributing to the thousands of mental illnesses.
In this modern age, I deleted Snapchat off my phone.
And I disabled my DMs on all socials because I was sick of being readily available for just anyone.
And it is for my safety. And if you think that I'm being some kind of self-righteous bigot or whatever, then that means you would prefer I tear down my boundaries for you. As a streamer, you are subject to something called trauma dumping, where people will come into your chat and speak about extremely sad personal matters because
So this is a point on which I don't have any active opinion. I would say that like I don't have any boundaries, and if my audience, such as it is always, right, discussed with me like personal matters, it wouldn't faze me, honestly. That's not an issue to me. I mentioned it, I think, like in my previous stream as well. It's like I don't mind. I never had any boundaries, to be honest. Unless somebody asks, and they go like, "Hey, I don't want to discuss this," and yeah, then I will never mention it ever, and that's it. But yeah, this is a point that to me is kind of neutral. I can see the dangers, I guess, but I just don't mind. It's not dangerous to me. I've been that's how my life has progressed, I guess, or evolved, if you want, where nothing can really hurt me, as fucking pompous as that sounded. And there is very little reason that anyone would bother anyways, just because I don't really make ripples, and I don't have anything to make ripples with. It's like, yeah, I always talked about anything in my life. Why would that be different on stream, I would chat up people in real life, or people would chat up me in real life, and before long we would be exchanging like funny stories from our lives and experiences, and stuff that I've done with you guys on my streams before, and as much as I don't want to sound like an ass or ungrateful or anything else, part of why I've stopped doing that much or this often is because, well, I'm not making any new experiences, and I'm not making any new acquaintances that are, to me, worth mentioning, or beyond passingly, or for my amusement and hopefully yours. And also, lately I'm kind of bored. Not bored of streaming or sharing my stuff, but like I'm at this weird crossroads with my own life. I've been waiting for so long to press that fucking new game plus button on my life, that it has put me into a sort of like pause, and while I'm in that pause, I feel a little bit lost, a little bit spaced out existentially. That's all. But if somebody was to prompt me to share, or they wanted to share something and discuss it with me on stream, off stream, I don't care. I'll be good with it. And this is not self-advertising. It's just how it is. It's just to make a point that it's not always bad. And yeah, I understand not a lot of people find that part of it pleasant, but I do. I like getting to know people, and I like it when people know me. Which is not to say that, like, you may not be like that, and that's fine. Of course it's fine. But to me, that little point that you just made, I'd say doesn't apply that much. But I can see the problems with it, honestly, especially if you haven't actively worked on being that way, meaning that you don't really hold any secrets and there are no secrets worth holding and none of them can backfire, unless you've done that, I guess I can see the potential hazards. Yeah. And it's not like, to me, boundaries are made to be broken and some kind of like rebellious shit like that. It's mostly just that I just don't have any, you know, um, for better or worse, There are some upper limits and, of course, there are some subjects, very, very few subjects, very few, that I might not bring up, or at least not often at all. Maybe I'll just talk about them once when I feel like it, and then just like never talk about it again. Stuff like that, yeah, of course. But yeah. Anyway, let's move on.
Because streaming is free therapy when it's not practice for flirting. And yeah.
Oh boy, streaming being free therapy. I joke about that a lot. Yeah, there is something relieving and therapeutic about just talking. Because yeah, who knew, right? I'm blowing your mind right now. And this is free therapy if you let it be, you know. But again, like, to me, it's just no more or less free therapy than just sitting at a bar and drinking a drink, and then somebody's there, and you go like, "Hey, sup, dude," and they go like, "Hey, how you doing, darling?" And you go like, "Yeah, everything is cool." And you start talking, and if you're honest, you might say, "Well, not everything really, you know how it is," and they're gonna say, "What do you mean by that?" And you're gonna say, "Yeah, this happened yesterday, fucking busted my fucking balls." And they're gonna be like, "Oh, I feel you, this happened to me," and it goes like that. It's not really something malicious or whatever. But yeah, you can say, "Oh, free therapy," yeah, for sure. But on the other hand, it's not like it's not abusive or anything. It's like just no. Neither is it trauma dumping. It's like just talking, I guess. There's lots of labels that go on talking recently. Like having a conversation now has like 50,000 labels. Trauma dumping, info dumping, too much information, this, that, so many things. All I'm doing, I don't know about you, but all I'm doing is like just talking. That's how casual it is to me. And I have had like a couple of situations where somebody would say, "Oh, that's um, talk about trauma dumping," and I'm like, I don't even know what you mean. Like the first time I heard about the term was literally like that, and I was like, "Well, what the fuck is trauma dumping?" And the person was like, "Oh, because you're talking about that relationship," and I'm like, "Yeah, so I'm over it, um, and it doesn't affect you; it affects me. Like, what the fuck?" If you don't want me to talk about it, just tell me, "Hey, Daphne, just don't talk about that." And I'll be like, "Oh, okay, sure, whatever. Let's talk about something else." So yeah, but again, like, I'm aware there are some people that will literally trauma dump you, like they are just waiting at the corner to ambush you with like probably a recent traumatic thing that they went through. But you can usually tell, like, if that's the case, you can usually tell by their demeanor and their uh, speech patterns, I guess, as to sound more scientific, that they're there to do that about this one thing with someone, and then they don't care beyond that. You can tell. I can tell. I don't know if you can tell, but I can tell. So I know how to avoid that. But there is no situation in which I'll tell the other person, "Hey, you're trauma dumping." If you got something on your head, uh, something that weighs you down, and I'm there, and I'm just chilling, and we kind of shoot the shit, and we're breaking the ice, and the ice is broken, and we're still talking, and it's relevant to what we're talking about, and you go full trauma dump, I guess, quote unquote mode. I'll just take it. I don't mind. I'll listen to it, and I'll be like, yeah, let me offer my opinion. And to be fair, that's when a lot of people will walk away, because when I do that, when I really, really, really offer my opinion, like my own truth to it, well, it's not really popular most of the times. like the things that I'll say, or the choices that I let people know I've done in their place. Not really things that people like to hear, I guess. I don't know. I guess it's a mixed bag. I mean, most people, half the people are gonna be like, "Oh, damn, that's like mind blowing," and other people will be like, "Oh no, what are you talking about? You're mad, mad with power, you fucking witch." And I'm like, "Okay, bye." Anyway, let me let Ellie talk.
I flirted back, trying to be cute and make money. I'm sorry I contributed to that, and I won't again. It's not fair to me, and it's not fair to the people who are paying for fake attention. It is not all my responsibility either.
You should not support someone just because you are attracted to them. This culture opened me up to being preyed on by narcissists,
Manipulators, sociopaths, and even pedophiles. People who want to tear your walls down just so you can make them feel more validated. It's all about you. You. While the people on the screen think it's all about me. Me. This was never my goal, and my dreams were corrupted by internet culture. I was blind to what I was.
Who are you kidding? Like, don't you know, Ellie? People want to be fooled. The song says it, okay? Some of them want to be abused by you, and some of them want to abuse you. You know? That's what dreams are made of lately. Um, Nobody likes it, I guess. Nobody with like above room temperature IQ likes this shit, but it's been there, and that's what it is. People like being fooled. People like that, and that's like literally what all of this culture is about. And people don't like fooling other people. It's something I'm trying to never do. Um, I could have, which is not to say I'm righteous or something. I mean, you know, but it's something I could have done. Um, haven't done it. Anyway, I don't want to like flex about like what I haven't or have done and how. But yeah, it's easy. It's easy. It'll get you money as well, and people will love you for it. That's true. But let's not pretend that this wasn't always the case. Like, well, you you started as an e-girl, and not here in particular, just talking in general, and you are so fucking delusional that you're thinking that what you're doing is art. Really? That reminds me of those people like in Final Fantasy and other games, VR Chat and other games, where they're like, "Oh, to me that's acting. That's like a higher expression of the self, and like, yeah, the ERP that I'm doing, that's like for my like theater studies, and I see it as an educational. Fuck off. You're just jerking off to someone, and they're jerking off to you, and they love it, and you love it, and you want it as fake as you can, because that's easy. It's easy to pretend. People love that shit. So let's not pretend in turn, that Ellie didn't know, because we all know. Okay, so on that one, and you get a strike, Ellie. I think you get a you get a Daphne strike. I'm sorry, nothing personal, kid, but I know that you don't mean it when you're saying that, like, oh, I didn't know it was like that. No, you knew. We all know. That's why it's created. Literally. So yeah. But again, like, I'm not here to diss on Ellie, and I agree with your points. Like, she's right. She's right. I just think she's a little bit late to the party, I guess. You know. But it's still very interesting video, and like I like her cadence and I like her eloquence and everything. I really appreciate it. It's a nice video, and there is lots of truth in it. So yeah, let's keep watching.
Was doing. And men are blind to what's being done to them. And some men are blind to what they are doing to women through this. If anyone tries to tear your walls down, break your boundaries, to be close to you, they want something from you. It's just a sign that you're in the presence of escapism at best.
and at worst, in the presence of the Dark Triad.
They want to get what they can out of you. There's no use for you outside of the internet.
I have learned a lot the past 2 years, and
Yeah, shit like that's what makes my socializing difficult, because people are, and they should be, very aware of this. And yeah, that's definitely the vast majority, the crashing majority. But again, like as somebody who isn't on that side of things, and I just like genuinely want to get to know people, it makes my job like so much harder. And yes, it's true. I do also want something from people. I mean, I'm not a fucking Buddhist monk. Okay, of course I want some like happy times with people. Of course I want to get to know them. But why? Now that's a very very different discussion. But I can see that the vast majority, especially people on the internet, will approach people for other kinds of gains. The kinds that Ellie is letting us know of. The what she said, literally. But again, it just makes my life fucking miserable, because then people think that that's my purpose. That my purpose is to just corrupt them and open them up and like get in there and do damage and leave. But that's really not what I'm all about. So there are people out there like me, and hi Neris, I'm not ignoring you, I'm just talking, um, that genuinely just want to be close to you for the sake of being close to you, for the sake of like, hey, you're another person. That's awesome to me. And they'll start like wagging their tail happily because another person. And believe it or not, that's me. Believe it or not, and there are other people like that. But this is not in defense of what the vast majority does. So don't confuse it with that, yeah? Because essentially what I'm doing here in this video is like I'm taking what somebody is saying and seeing it through the prism of me, of myself. So keep that in mind. I'm not here to refute what she's saying. I'm just here to add my own thoughts, being myself. All right? There's a huge difference there.
Now it's my goal to use my platform to teach others and try to have people think for themselves.
On my path of learning and searching for truth, I discovered the big monster of capitalism and how places like Twitch or OnlyFans contributes to a bigger problem than most people understand. In the internet world where you have to fight to stay relevant because everything is accelerated at an alarming pace, this shallow way of being has an expiration date. Everyone gets older, looks fade, women will feel competition with each other, they'll be competing for attention and the wallets.
What was that Sophie over there? Who's Sophie? Let me see. Oh, the cat? Oh, let me see.
Men will feel competition
Yeah, maybe it's the cat. Look, there's a cat there.
with each other. They'll be competing for attention and the wallets of men. And men will compete against each other too. Their expiration date is when their money runs out.
That is such an interesting take. When there is so capitalism is competition, right? Me competition, we have a very, very healthy relationship. I avoid it, and it can't touch me. That's my take on it. I mean, I'm not competing with anyone. I'm in my own little bubble on Twitch and in life. Whenever I see competition, I'm like, nah, you can have it. I don't fucking care. I'm just doing my thing in the corner. I don't care to drain your wallets or anything. Again, one person, which is me, right? Assuming you believe me, of course. Though my record will show that I'm actually correct. Even my stream record, my Twitch performance so far, if I may call it that. There's nothing about it that is like prompting you to give me your money or something. So there are people out there. I mean, I'm here. So it's not all dark. And if you find it to be dark, then why are you fucking getting intertwined with all this shit? It's your choice, and you knew. You only have yourself to blame, really. And I think she knows, and that's very honest there. But as far as I'm concerned, and the side of things I'm giving, I don't give a shit. You know, I had no subscribers for like the longest time except Neris. I don't really make any money, and I'm still here. I'm streaming, and I'm not trying to compete with like anyone really. I'm not doing the whole try hard thing of like, oh, let's put some makeup on, let's fix our room and make it like anything I can do to entice people to spend money, you know. And this is not to say like, oh, I'm genuine, you should give me your money instead of them. Like, no, you know, it's just that like, yeah, it exists, you know, I exist, so therefore there must be more people who don't give a fuck about this. That's the thing, you know. And as much as I wish I made a living out of Twitch, um, I know that my lack of competitiveness will never work, you know, because people do what I do like 10,000 times better. They're already doing it, you know. Um, and so I'm keeping it down low, you know. I'm just like, yeah, instead of worrying if they can do what I can do, I'll just do what they're doing, which is like, oh, here's a PC and here's a Twitch account, and yeah, let's fucking stream a little bit, you know, because that's what I like. I don't see any competition, honestly. If I ever sense somebody trying to compete directly with me, I'm just gonna be like, hey, you can have whatever fucking arbitrary award you think you're gonna get out of that. I don't give a shit, you know. And I think that's the best way to be when it comes to these things, because once you get into that treadmill of competition, yeah, then she's right. Then you're fucked, buddy. That's it. That's when the caca happens. That's when most of the caca happens. And I'll tell you one other thing. It's also partly why I didn't and still don't really feel like upping my game on Twitch. It's why I'm so hesitant to do it, because I know that I'll be starting something uh, that might not end too well, you know? Whereas, for example, now I'm comfy, I'm like, but you know, that's a whole other conversation. I don't know. Maybe I can up the quality of my stream and like my content a little bit without getting competitive with anyone still, or with, you know, with other streamers or whatever. Who the fuck knows? I guess we'll see. Anyway, yeah, if you want to avoid that shit, just don't be competitive. You know, if so, here's the thing: if I have to fight for something, if I have to fight other people for something, it's already something temporary. It's done, because then somebody else is gonna fight you for it. It's gonna be better, because there's always somebody better. Just like you're somebody better than the person you fought and won the stuff that you wanted to win from. You know? Do you really want to be in that fucking cycle? I don't. Tried it. Tried it with very early on with relationships, and my god, that was miserable. And I never want to try it with anything in life at all. I'm done with that shit. I was done for a very long time, you know. Um, and you know what's very ironic? That in doing so, legitimately, no one can compete with me, because who's gonna lower the quality of their stream to match mine, right? How are you gonna get the very few viewers that I have? How are you gonna win them over? You know, because you've done everything that you could, and they're still watching me. What are you gonna do? Do less? I'll still be me. You know, they'll still watch me instead. So basically, sometimes the way to win something is to never even bother with it. That's it. You either got it or not. What can I tell you? I think that's a healthy perspective, you know? The only war you ever win is the one you didn't have to fight in. Simple. Anyway.
You do not actually know the other person in these fake relationships. You don't know if they actually align with your ideals. And we all know that the anonymity of the internet makes it so easy to hide who you really are.
Streamers will lie to their audience in order to not be canceled and win public support, because your money is more important than their honesty and integrity. The truth is not profitable. This culture gives the unhealthy ego a place to thrive. All you have to do is virtue signal
And say you're supporting.
So fun little thing. Uh, this is this is the so I've been noticing throughout the video, right? I've been looking at Ellie, and I cannot help but marvel at like how similar we look were I to apply some makeup, like a light makeup. And in particular, in this like frame, um, this is me literally in 2002 or something, getting ready to go out to Underworld, which was the club I ended up owning, the Goth club. This just this kind of this is weird because it's like I literally had a picture of myself, um, literally, like I know you probably don't believe it, and I'm not trying to prove anything by saying that. Oh, look, I look like here. I'm so cool. I'm not saying that. It's like I am kind of amazed at the similarities, like the like facial structure, the hair, and the makeup is so similar that it just takes me back. It really does take me back. Holy shit. Damned. Anyway, I'll let you continue. That's funny to see. Also, don't mistake it for like, oh, she's copying me, or like or anything like that. It's just it's innocent. I promise you. It's just it's always it always makes me happy to see. Um, they probably looked good and probably still do, kinda, maybe. Um, but yeah, this is such a fucking throwback. Cool.
Gives the unhealthy ego a place to thrive. All you have to do is virtue signal.
And say you're supporting women by supporting their OnlyFans.
And women say they're supporting themselves. They're independent, even though they're using a platform created by and for men who have free access to all of their pictures and videos.
And make a profit off of all the content, no matter how private or personal it is. I would have men ask me when, not if, when I was going to get an OnlyFans. OnlyFans was created by a very suspicious individual who has suspicious relationships with children. It's no surprise that Twitch has become the site to pick your favorite e-girl to simp for. It's run by Jeff Bezos, who builds value. He's looking to make a profit. So you and the streamers are products. And maybe you're having some cognitive dissonance. The narrative that this is mentally healthy or safe for men and women, or that somehow this will make men respect women more in the
Ellie, you're talking a lot about men and women, but you're forgetting everything in between. And trust me, these problems affect those people too. They affect everyone. It's not just men and women. First of all, which is just a small, tiny correction, just because she's throwing those two words around a lot, like men, women, women, men. This is 2025 now, girl. It's like there's other things out there, and they're just as in danger as men and women. you know. Um, but that's a very small correction, a small addition, let's say. But yeah, again, like Ellie here is coming to us with this angle of let me open your eyes, sheeple. And she's right. But let me tell you, people know. People know. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. We all knew. We always have known. That's, like the only one having a revelation here is Ellie so far. I would hope, because if what she's saying is revelatory to you, wake up call, kid. Welcome to the world, and everything works like that. You know, society sees you as a product, not just Twitch. You are just nothing to most people who matter in some capacity. In some regard, you're just a cog. That's it. And yeah, we knew. I mean, Cyberpunk says hello, not the game, the genre. And this other, we can go far back to find the oldest mention of like people realizing that hey, maybe we're viewed as fucking tools and bots and just nothing and as free estate to be taken advantage of. Like that is one of the oldest concepts. But I guess when it touches your bum bum a bit too hard, when it pinches you in the ass a little bit too hard, you then make a video. And I'm glad that you did, and I'm glad that you realized. Problem is, lots of people know, and that's how it works. It's exactly why it works, because it's based on some very um, core elements of the human, you know, creature, the human animal, right? Anyway,
the long run. This doesn't act towards respecting women because women who do not involve themselves with such activities still get seen as the same and are expected to participate, and men are not respected any more than you would respect an ATM. The irony is that the women who are doing this kind of thing, that have a hatred for men, are feeding into the elitist patriarchy themselves and grooming more women to be trapped.
of course, and social media, as she said, does add to that a lot. I mean, even anime does, even like series do, not just anime. Like, hey, did you miss the whole part with like the Barbie dolls back in the, when was it, like 70s, 80s? When the fuck was that shit? When people kind of had a moment there and went like, wait a minute, why are you pushing like these weird like standards generation, And anime is doing that now. History repeats itself, I guess, in the most weird and niche ways, apparently. And so, the more you look an anime lolly girl, I'm sorry for saying that, but it's true, the more successful you are. And the more successful you are, the more people will want that and expect it from others. And the more they expect from others will do it to meet the requirements. I mean, come on, dude. Let's go on.
In the patriarchy with their perfect photoshopped pictures and all their makeup and their push-up bras. Now you might be thinking, well, Ellie, you're wearing makeup right now. And you're right, because the internet is a harsh, evil place. People are very
Was I muted all this time, by the way? Maybe I was. Holy shit. I don't know. I don't fucking. If I was just talking about makeup and how it just doesn't matter. Just do what you want, you know? Anyway, yeah. If I was muted, fuck me, you missed like a lot, and that's okay. And if I wasn't muted, whatever. Let's move on. Welcome back. But I wasn't away. Yeah. That's the thing. I think I accidentally muted myself and I was talking for a little bit about like some stuff. But hey, we missed it, whatever. Let's go on. Yeah, I was muted, yeah. So I probably was muted for the part where I was saying that like what she's saying about makeup is just part of the whole competing thingy, right? TLDR. So just don't do it, I guess, because I cannot wear makeup or not feminize my voice, and people can still like me. The same goes for everyone. Even if you feel like makeup, then wear it, and if you feel like feminizing your voice, then do it. And that's it. Anyway, that was like yeah, that was it. Let's move on. Let's move on. I goofed. It's fine.
Mean. I feel like I have to wear makeup, present myself in a certain way to even be listened to. Consider it my war paint. I once heard that porn stars.
Yo, your makeup can be your war paint, but do not blaspheme against war paint by saying that wearing makeup to compete with other streamers is like war paint. No, it's not. Sorry, I will fight you on this. No, the way that you're using makeup if you're doing it to compete with other streamers is just blasphemy. To me, as someone who went out and clubbed with actual Skyrim war paint. That was my statement. Okay, you and anyone using makeup just to pretty themselves for a camera, that's not putting on your war paint. That is quite literally clowning up. I'm sorry. And this is not an attack on Ellie. It's just like that's true. Don't confuse these things. Don't confuse these things. Clowning up and making a statement are very two different things. And I say it clowning up because, like, yeah, if you're just using colors in your face just to look prettier than the next, like, fish in the pond, well, that's clowning up because, I don't know, I consider that a little bit clownish, myself. But that's just me. I stand by what I said. Like, you really, makeup doesn't make you, your voice doesn't make you. It's just like people will watch you if they want to watch you. So, yeah. I don't know. Which they don't watch me, but like the couple of people that do, that's enough for me. They say that like even one friend is a treasure. Well, it's the same with like things like tweets, right? And especially for someone who's not even competing and doesn't want to be part of that fucking system. As cringy as that's, my god, that sounded cringy. But even one viewer for me is such a huge victory, for real. One viewer, one subscriber, one follow is like such a huge victory. It's nice. It's nice because I know that these people are just gonna keep watching, I guess, because they're definitely not here for the makeup. They're definitely not here for the voice. Maybe there is something else, right? And I know for a fact it's not my thighs or something because I barely show myself on camera, so which is something I struggle with. Which is also another thing why I could never compete with anyone on Twitch, because I can't even do the basics right. And you know what? I'm streaming like the way that I want to stream, I guess. So there is a reason for all this. I'm guessing, maybe not what I'm doing, but maybe closer to what I'm doing than what she's doing. Perhaps, which is either being part of that or completely just, blocking it all out and just, I don't know, going into the mountains to seclude herself, virtually, which is a bit drastic, I would say. But hey, this is like just discussion. Like it's not dissing on her or anything. I really enjoy what she's saying, And I'm glad that like this is putting it out there, right? 10K views. And she's based in like what you're saying. Anyway, moving on.
Are becoming Twitch streamers, and Twitch streamers are becoming porn stars. I don't remember who told me that, but I still remember it to this day. Do you agree? Leave your comments down below. Remember to like this video or dislike it. The algorithm doesn't care if you disagree with me or not. And you can present the argument well. The people that are viewing streamers like Amaranth aren't your audience. Well, if places like Twitch are promoting streams like that on their front page, it is a representation of women on the platform. And there's no way for you nor I to know whether a viewer comes right from doing whatever they do while watching streams like that onto my stream in just a click of a button.
Are you arguing that our human brains can differentiate something so quickly between me and the last streamer that they watched? Because to a random observer, I'm just a girl on a screen. You can even pick your type.
Blue eyes, redheads, brunettes, pick your poison, likes, views, money. It's addicting. It teaches people that everyone has a price. Sad, lonely men spend thousands of dollars on women on the internet to have some kind of connection with them. Sexual gratification or validation. To take advantage of that for profit is shameful. I won't contribute to that. If you want to be in a symbiotic relationship with someone where you both mutually consent that you are using each other, then that means you are admitting that human interactions have now been degraded
to transactions.
I have seen what this culture creates. It creates monsters. I was a monster, obsessed with views, obsessed with myself. Meanwhile, narcissism was just to hide this deep sense of inadequacy.
Yeah, of course, because you're gonna try to compensate for what you are now perceiving to be you not being efficient compared or in competition with other streamers, I guess. Like Ellie, people know. That's what's scary about it. I'll keep saying this throughout the video. People know. They want this. That's the fucking shit about it. That's what fucking sucks about it, dude. That's why I can't make it on Twitch. Because I won't compete. I refuse. But yeah, I'm glad that it, dawned on me, literally. It's not sarcastic. It's like, it's such a simple thing, and yet not a lot of people realize it even. But yeah, they just subconsciously know it. Trust me. Anyway, sad video though, honestly.
Something fell off because I wasn't really contributing anything substantial to society by doing that.
I love playing video games, but eventually it wasn't even about playing the game anymore because I got stuck in a loop of playing the same game over and over again. That frustrated me because that's what people wanted to see. And so then it became about the views and not about the game I wanted to play. This whole culture propagates a society that evaluates real human worth to a dollar amount. An ever-changing, arbitrary sense of value.
That shifts with inflation, just like the meat you buy at a grocery store. Except instead of sustenance, you get a momentary hit of dopamine.
At the expense of real time, you have spent working to make that money when you should be using that money to invest in yourself. Of course, people aren't going to like what I say. And of course, I have lost all my financial support. And I know that there are people out there that feel trapped in this game. Everyone feels like they have to side hustle these days. So I'm not trying to say that I hate you or anything for having an OnlyFans, but it's important to know the implications of what you're doing. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm tired. I'm tired of living in delusions and lies. I'm tired of contributing to a society that's hurting people, that's destroying their mental capacity. I will get hatred spewed at me from every direction from people that I've known for years because I'm trying to be honest. I and many other women in my generation have been groomed by music, media, the news.
Doublethink throughout our society, trying to say net negatives are positives, to conform to a narrative that serves no one.
Except for those already in power. I'm not afraid anymore to speak my mind. I've already been
canceled.
Ellie, you should have been like that and streamed like that from day one, dude. That's like, I bet this is like, at least to me, right? At least to me, I would watch this version of Ellie. And I think this version of Ellie should just not care about what the previous version of Ellie cared, which is like the people that are now obviously trying to cancel her. Here. Who cares about these people, dude? Who the fuck cares? Just if you like streaming, just stream. If you want to play a game nobody wants to watch, just do it. Jesus Christ. Yeah, it is just like, this could be summarized as former e-girl has a realization kind of video. But she thinks that this is stuff that, the rest of them don't realize. They do. Their viewers do. That is the scary thing. Or actually, I don't even know which is scarier. Like that or the fact that maybe, in fact, they don't realize. I don't know which is scarier, but what I do know is that, like, you gotta... Oh, God. I understand. You gotta play the dumb game, Sometimes I get it. As she says, I'm not hating on anyone. I'm just kind of disappointed. That's all. I'm kind of disappointed. At the same time, though, I'm also happy because, again, I do have a little bit of an audience, I guess. So that means that, yeah, there is hope. There is hope that you don't have to really push it that hard. It's just that, like, honestly, it's just competition that makes it like that. And I don't think competition is a large part of capitalism. That's true. But no, I think this is just all competition for money, I guess. I wouldn't call it necessarily capitalism in a conspiratorial way. I try to avoid that shit. I try to go for the core of things, and in the core here is just like it's the human instinct to compete, like for a mate, for a job, for more money than the other person. It's like, and people feel smart when they do side hustles, like streaming, because you're like, oh yeah, I made it that way, People feel smart. People like feeling smart, especially dumb people. they like feeling smart. And maybe I'm dumb too. I don't know. My only defense to that is like, hey, I'm not going after the money. I'm not going after the views. I'm not even competing. I'm just here. I just fucking exist, dude. I don't know. I think just fucking existing is very healthy. I know a lot of people are like, oh, no, you have to do this and that. And you have to have a car and a job and a dog and a woman. And I'm like, bro, I don't know. Miss me with that shit. I'm just sliding, through life. That's all I care about. Smooth slide. I don't care about much else. I don't know. Let's go on.
For calling out corruption inside of a certain community in a certain video game. When shit hit the fan and I was abused by a pedophile in their community and sexually harassed by a dev from their favorite video game, they witch hunted me over a tweet I wrote. Ironic.
We have devolved into radical socio and political ideologies. It isn't genuine, and it is not logical, and it is not helpful. It's often marked by false concerns that proves to damage people over time and is only fit to serve the one, the you. It is a step backwards, disguised as being progressive. This type of symbiotic narcissistic relationship opens you up to lots of mental manipulation.
It's been proven over and over again that people spend money when they're upset, that these internet algorithms in lots of different places, not just on your phone for advertisements, but in video games too, people stay addicted to things if it triggers emotion. And with a society that's continuously being numb to human emotion through oversaturation,
this all contributes to a lingering sense of anxiety and hopelessness. How are you supposed to feel in alignment with other people like this? Now, of course, we cannot forget the fact that we all were trapped indoors on the internet for the past few years. So you can't blame people for being poisoned like this and being stuck, addicted to algorithms, addicted to screens, addicted to e-girls. But you can blame people for refusing to educate themselves on what this is doing to real human relationships and ignoring the real world implications that come from social media and the propaganda.
Man, it's like listening to myself, like I think a year ago when I was talking about that similar issue with, like, MMO players, and how they've been separated and isolated, and like they've been like living in their rooms basically their whole life at this point. It's like listening to myself, which is not bad. It's not bad. It's nice to see another person just like kind of having the same views, let's say. Um, it's nice, I guess. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to add to this. Interesting like topic, interesting like debate, as said, or monologue. I like it. Um, yeah, let's go on. Let's finish this.
Poison we have been ingesting for years that people on the internet actively contribute to, propagate, and encourage for a profit. And I expect people to gaslight me about this just because I'm trying to call this out. Or maybe some of you can sense the corruption. And if we keep being afraid to talk about this corrosion of society, we will continue to be sucked into illusions and flow further away from real solutions. And I get it. Humans are social creatures, but that need for social interaction has been manipulated and monetized. And I understand why someone would do it. It's in order to avoid pain and gain a reward in this society that breaks you down, where you work so hard for almost nothing compared to these big streamer millionaires who make so much money off of the people that work difficult 9 to 5s. At a certain point, you lose touch with reality if you continue to suppress and disown what is real. I'm making this in the hope that it impacts one person positively enough to rethink that subscription on OnlyFans. All this culture does is create dysfunctional psychological patterns in people. Feelings are important, and yes, you can feel a certain way, but feelings don't always reflect reality. All I can ask is that you not shut down intelligent conversation about this, and therefore halt the evolution of our species. Hi. Okay, I think Sophie is saying it's bedtime, so I am very tired. You're right, Sophie. I am open to any concerns you might have. Feel free to follow me on the links below. Thank you for listening, and I hope this made an impact on you. Hopefully a positive one.
Yeah, I made that positive impact on myself like years ago, but hey, welcome to the club, kid. You took the right pill. I always wanted to say that. But yeah, no, it's like, yeah, I get it. I get it. Don't worry. There are people who get it out there, Ellie. Don't worry. But even if we do get it, here we are, still trying to cut it, still trying to side hustle. What are you gonna do? Huh? What are you gonna do? But at least you can be genuine. At least you can retain some semblance of like dignity. That's what matters, I think. Anyway, yeah, no, I can see, I can see how this might have tired Ellie. Even thinking about it tires me. I even tire talking about it. That's why, I'll just say, great video. I really enjoyed watching it, and I feel validated. Thank you. But yeah, make no mistake, as I said, it's like people know, and that's what that's like. Yeah, it's a gold mine. Did you expect anyone not to try and take a bite from that pie? We all float down here, Ellie. We all float down here. Anyway, hey, what she said, okay? If this kind of like opened your eyes, first, you fucking loser. How did you not know this? And second, hey, good job. That's all I'm gonna say. Next vid, good job, Ellie. I liked it. The Goth Girl Paradox. Now that, I'm already smiling. You can't see it. Actually, you can. I'm already smiling about this. What the fuck? There we go. I can recline. Um, I, as a goth girl and the paradox myself, okay, I'll dare it. Okay, okay. He's actually breaking down the history of the Goths. Maybe I will skip that part because, quite honestly, come on now, dude. Nobody who is a Goth, no Goth that ever ghost, you know, thinking that they will become a Visigoth or whatever else. Okay, I'm sorry, but if he goes to the historical facts, I'm skipping to the parts that interest me. I'm not looking for a history lesson in like Goths. I'm looking for a paradox about Goths in modern, the culture. Okay, not the you get it. Let's see what's up, and I'm gonna give you my very Goth and paradoxical opinion about it as well.
What's dark, mysterious, and drains all of your dopamine on social media? If you guessed a goth girl, you'd be correct. For the last 6 years or so, social media has been overflowing with goth girl related content. Whether it be an actual girl dressed in dark alternative clothing, dancing to metalcore, or a 34-year-old man with a 9 to 5 and 3 kids, thirsting over what he may consider to be a goth girl, is pretty much impossible to avoid, and raises some real issues in regards to objectification and of course, the degeneration and perceived watering down of subcultures. These creatures have become a staple of
Yo, preach, my man. Okay.
any alternative or countercultural algorithm in the modern day, which got me thinking. I began to ponder the deep and rich history of the Gothic subculture that was born out of the 1970s UK post-punk scene, and how the current perception of a goth differs from what it once was. It seems nowadays anybody who dresses somewhat alternative and utilizes dark colors in their outfits is immediately slapped the label of goth. The
Yes. Fucking thank you. Let's go on.
term is no longer related to a style of music in the same way it was in the 70s. This is mainly because the people who listen to gothic style post-punk in the modern day do not look like this. They look like this and are extremely Eastern European. Since the concrete birth of the gothic subculture in the 70s, the representation of individuals within the scene has evolved and of course devolved countless times as media representation has shifted. They went from being presented as freaks obsessed with morbidity and deviantly sexual pastimes to quirky, endearing outcasts, and somehow all the way back to deviant freaks obsessed with sexuality through the development of social media, with the goth girl meme dehumanizing countless individuals who relate to the subculture.
This guy is spitting. This guy is dropping wisdom, dude. Let's see. I am like, yes. 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 Like, yeah, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see.
Despite the negative representation being the same, the vast majority of people nowadays that are labelled as goth look vastly different from the over-the-top and clearly recognisable style of the 70s. It's become a lot more subdued, with goth essentially becoming anyone who wears black or utilises aspects of fashion that traditionally range from grunge to emo to nu metal. Although the way in which goth's definition has changed in the past 50 years may seem extreme, it's nothing compared to the ways in which the term was utilised when Goths first rose to prominence around 1,700 years ago. Despite the original definition of Goth seeming ancient and completely unrelated to this it's essential in understanding how the aesthetic and definition developed throughout history, and of course, became essential to understanding the Goth girl paradox. Let's go all the way back to 300 AD, drop the typical mall goth amongst these and simply see what happens. This was at a point in history where the Roman Empire was going pretty sicko mode, laying claim.
Was that Metatron? Was that like that sword guy that became a fucking that like Shadiversity became political and like yeah, I think that was him, right? He used to be a cool sword guy as well. Then he went political, and now he's not a cool sword guy anymore. Just like Shad. Probably a bit crazier, I would say. I stopped watching him. I just couldn't take the political nonsense that he started injecting left and right. So the history part. Hey, if you're interested in that, the actual origins of Goth as it is, then we have very different interests. Because I am a shallow fuck who just likes to dress in black and is enamored with not so modern anymore version of Goth. Like, you know, like my context is like at one point I discovered that black is a really cool color and that metal is fucking cool, and from there, you know, things just went their way. I discovered the goth scene in my like city, and I became very much enamored with that. And I like the aesthetics, and I like the people, and I like the music, and everything about it. And so yeah, I just adopted that, and that's how I became a goth. And it has nothing to do like I am not a person who cares about history much. I'm like, who the fuck cares if the word originated there or here? It is what it is now in my, you know, time, and that's what concerns me. And I know that's a dangerous, you know, position to play from. But when it comes to like things like taste in fashion or music, or you know, if the whole like attitude just matches mine, when it comes to stuff like that, I don't quite care about the history of it. Though, you know, I will sometimes hyper focus on things and just go like, okay, where did that came from? And then that's when I will seek out interesting facts about that, you know. And I have done so about Goth, obviously, because I've been Goth for quite a while. Well, basically ever since I discovered what the fuck I am. I was like, oh, that's Goth then. Okay, cool. You know, wearing black and like just all that shit. Yeah, that's shallow, I know, but I like shallow. In some cases, I like shallow, you know, and I don't care if, oh, you know, are you a goth? So then, how do you not know where the? I don't give a fuck where it came from. You know, there's cool people with cool ideologies, making cool music and looking cool as fuck. Count me in, you know, and it's hot. I like it, and it's a good match for me, and I feel at home. You know, ever since I fucking understood some stuff, I was like, yeah, that feels like, yeah, I'm a part of that. Yeah, that's cool. You know, it's not being part of anything, to be honest. It's just like, I don't know, expressing yourself, you know? Like, let's be fair. I do characterize myself as goth, but at the same time, it's not something I like saying. I don't know. I prefer saying, hey, you know, I like this kind of music and I have this type of personality and I like this style of clothing, and yeah, the people are interesting and I like looking at it and it makes me feel comfortable expressing myself through that. And sometimes that's all that's as far as I need to go in some regards. So the history of it, oh, it's the architecture of that person who did this that started with that, like all that. Yeah, yeah, I've been down that rabbit hole. I don't want to go down that path now, so I'm gonna like kind of, you know, just skip over. Um, There we go. Is it all the way up to here?
The term in a derogatory manner to refer to the style as crude and barbaric. The term became common lexicon and was used to refer to
Yeah, it's still ongoing. Okay, so when is the history lesson stopping, bro? Not that it's bad. You can definitely just find something good about it, but like, okay, let's start there. Yeah, let's start like where? Let's start like here. Let's go.
point finally being utilized to define a particular aesthetic or style across various art forms. The dark romanticism labeled as goth began to meld with the architecture and art. It became a certain vibe. Goth became indicative of counterculture and was seen as a term to describe art created by individuals that sought to shake the status quo, whilst also using a particular aesthetic and style inspired by architecture that was only possible due to a barbaric Germanic tribe that defeated the Romans centuries beforehand. This laid the groundwork for the birth of filmmaking, with early Gothic films perhaps being the most important aspect contributing to the modern day goth girl. Many films created in the early 1900s were directly inspired by the dark romantic literature that had received the label of Gothic and prominently utilized the femme fatale archetype. This archetype essentially defines a mysterious, beautiful, and seductive woman who leads unsuspecting men into dastardly traps, which sounds like something we are all very much aware of in the modern day. This character has been utilized within Western literature since the Middle Ages, although only began to see real influence upon modern goth culture in 1915 with the film A Fool There Was. This film featured the actress Tedda Barra as the vampire. Barra is seen as one of the earliest sex symbols within cinema and utilized various modern goth staples within her visual style. Examples include dark clothing and makeup, with the latter directly inspiring what these motherfuckers would eventually lather all over their face in the modern day. Other films such as Das Kabinett, Des Dr. Caligari took the aesthetic and vibe described in early Gothic literature and presented it in a visually digestible manner. Although this is all starting to make a lot more sense, you're probably still wondering how a term's definition can go from barbaric warriors to a specific aesthetic used in architecture and art, and then suddenly literally anything alternative or quote unquote different like
Yeah, Goth has come to become this blanket term to describe anything alternative. Uh, on one hand, I like that, it's become a refuge, but now it's no longer a refuge. It's just like everyone is goth the moment they just add a little black to their fucking attire. It's a bit tiring, I'm not gonna lie, but whatever. I don't, I'm too mellowed out with that shit to care, honestly. Um, yeah. Uh, just wanted to add that.
in the case of the modern day? Well, unfortunately, we still aren't quite there yet. First, we need to explore what led to the explosion of goth music and therefore aesthetic and fashion within culture. The late 60s saw a countercultural explosion, only this era of counterculture was more so tie-dye, colourful beads and untreated STIs than black lipstick, fishnets and still somehow untreated STIs. That's right, the hippie explosion in the 60s saw psychedelics, peace and love skyrocketed to the heights of popular culture, although this will be extremely short-lived. Every time counterculture strays too far into popular culture, it can't even really be considered counterculture anymore, with this leading to another antithetical countercultural scene inevitably grown in the underground like fungus. This music scene was described by some as gothic rock, with the term first seeing usage by journalist John Stickney to describe the music of The Doors after meeting Jim Morrison in a dimly lit wine cellar and pretentiously describing how it was the perfect location to meet the mastermind behind gothic rock. The term saw occasional usage throughout the late 60s, often being slapped onto the darker and more edgy bands of the time such as the Velvet Underground. The term wouldn't see enough usage for an actual subculture to form, however, more so just journalists and critics attempted to sound intelligent by utilizing a term you read in a history book while slurping overly expensive brown caffeine sludge. I can't chat though, I drink so much of this shit, my heart constantly hurts. Whilst we're on the topic of chronic heart pain, the term goth would once again rear its head in relation to music after punk in the United Kingdom consequently gave every middle-class white British person heart palpitations
And that's why you see a lot of punk elements in Goth, actually. Just in case it wasn't obvious, because it really just they're kind of like intertwined, whether you like it or not, you know. So yeah, just a little bit there, because a lot of people seem to have this confusion. Oh, but aren't mohawks actually punk? I mean, yeah, but I say we because I'm Goth. We adopted that shit, because it kind of like, I mean, he explains it a lot better than I do. But there you go. Go on with.
Unfortunately, however, first wave UK punk died in about as much of a spectacular fashion as it rose to prominence, with the genre splintering into various different sections of post-punk. Punks had had enough of attempting to lyrically insult the politics of the time in the most caveman-brained way possible, and instead shifted into bands that avoided the brashness and speed of early punk, and instead focused on atmosphere, echoing drums, and macabre lyricism. The first song that can truly be considered goth in the eyes of many is Bauhaus's debut single.
Yeah, if you were cynical, you could say that basically at first there was like punk and post-punk, obviously, and then like they decided that they can't really affect things too much, and they went into this like darker, more introspective kind of culture. But I have to say, I have to correct the person here. Like punk and post-punk are not dead, honestly. Um, at least in my early clubbing years, a lot of actual, literal just punk people would be there in every goth club that I ever went, and we just coexisted, you know. And even up to 10 years ago, when I would be clubbing, I would there was always like in the various clubs that I would go, there would always be like this like bunch of people who were like in their own corner. They were obviously not goth, but they were actually punk, and they would at times also ask for several songs that were definitely not goth. And I vibed with them like a lot. I vibed with them a lot because even though I like, more delicate, elegant style of dancing, there were times in the night where I just wanted to fucking let go a little bit. So whenever they would ask the DJ to play um, something punk, I would be there and like, headbang with them and like do crazy shit, like, I don't know, hang from the ceiling because it was like a low ceiling. And we would like literally jump and grab fucking the ventilation thingy, and we would like swing and like stuff like that. And I know you can't imagine me doing that. Actually, who am I kidding? You obviously can imagine me doing that. Imagine like imagine what I was a femboy essentially, then cross dresser, but like it's called a femboy I guess now. Imagine a goth femboy just fucking headbanging and hanging from pipes in the ceiling and swinging, and then like 5 or 6 or 8 dudes literally fucking headbanging and stomping. It was crazy. It was good times. It was really good times. I miss that shit. Yeah. And then we would like have beer and like toast and be like, yeah. you know, and we would sing along to like what was that song, for example, that went like with a rose tattoo or something? I can't remember the name of the fucking song, but they would request it so often, that like it became kind of like a staple that at one point through the night, whenever I would hear that, I would go with those guys and kind of like become complete baboons, not baboons, but baboons, and that was so fucking cool. I like punk. I don't know. There is something about it, some kind of energy that I still like absolutely appreciate. And it's not the kind of music that I would hear on my own. I would listen to it on my own. But definitely, if I'm out and if I'm in a party mood, and that shit blasts, yeah. You can bet your ass I'll be like stomping and jumping and whatever, and like just um, yeah, it's nice. But what I wanted to say was that yeah, I don't think punk is dead. I don't think so. I would not say so, but I would say that it is definitely dying at this point. Just like emo. I mean, emo is still there, right? New metal is still there. Elements of it exist. People will wear, cargo pants and shit, and they will wear like, a choker and a black shirt, and it's gonna have like the corn logo on it and stuff like that. But it's mostly just very much in the background. It's like such a niche thing now. So punk and emo and like, new metal are so niche right now. So like sidelined. Goth somehow made it through, and I think that's because it's been used, the term has been used wrong. So yeah, um, I think that's why it still exists, because people who just wear sexy black clothes, that's it, kind of adopted it, and now they're goth, and so it lives on. That's the only reason why it's still relevant, I think. Otherwise, it would be like punk or new metal, I guess. It would have done its thing and gone, but it stayed because of that reason, I believe. But anyway, moving on.
Bela Lugosi's Dead, named after the iconic horror film actor from the late 20s with the same name, known for playing Dracula in the 30s. This was the first time a genre of music was so clearly inspired by the aesthetic and style of art that utilized the traditional label of goth. The song utilized tongue-in-cheek lyricism alongside a visual style from the band that paid respect to the gothic films created 40 years beforehand. This style began to spread throughout the United Kingdom like some sort of sick bat-related disease, and I don't mean this one. Bands like Joy Division, The Cure, and Susie and the Banshees signaled a
All the bands that the guys mentioned, damn, I love them. I still listen to that shit. I don't think I'll ever stop. I genuinely like it a lot. Anyway,
new era for punk sonically, with the latter two specifically inspiring much of the later goth fashion. Robert Smith and Susie Sue took elements from the more macabre aspects of gothic symbolism and utilized it alongside the typical punk rock anti-establishment style. Specifically, Susie Sue, who had been a prominent member of the punk scene for years, received the label of goth mother, which meant something a lot different back then than it does today. As opposed to being a heinous label used by freakazoids on dating apps, the
yeah, I've told you before, if somebody unironically uses goth mommy with me, they're cooked. I don't know. That's it. They're done. They're done. It's, to me, it's like the same as calling me by my dead name. It's like you're looking for trouble, kid. You're fucking looking for trouble. So yeah, but if you're using it humorously, obviously I'll laugh along and I'll play along. But yeah, uh, he's so right about that.
The label Goth Mother referred to the way in which she inspired the fashion of every goth to come after, as her style was quickly replicated by countless individuals within the scene. Although the UK goth scene originally came as a result of music, the subculture wasn't entirely defined by the sound. The early music of the Smiths, for example, would sonically be considered very similar to bands like The Cure, although Morrissey just simply did not have the same level of steez as other goth bands. You couldn't just rip your shirt off, place a rose in your mouth, and be extremely racist against Chinese people. There had to be a particular aesthetic. It's pretty similar to why Glenn Matlock was kicked out of the Sex Pistols for liking the Beatles and looking like this. Fashion and image has always been incredibly important to the music, especially during the 70s, when a lack of streaming meant that visuals were essential to receiving new fans. The goth style utilized the raw, rebellious attitude of early punk rock alongside a more introspective aesthetic, with the style of dress focusing heavily on dark aspects. Androgyny became a key element of early goth fashion, with many of the outfits
And that's why it became a refuge for alternative people. Let's say it became a refuge for what was to become the LGBT community, I guess. Though that's putting it very cynically. What I'm trying to say, without being, I don't want to be even in the least bit offensive or bigoted, because I'm not. But let me say it as it is. The goth scene, wherever it surfaced, immediately drew in all kinds of outcasts, quote unquote. So gay people, or people who were, even myself, like as back then, crossdresser slash femboy now, I guess. Um, I won't say it didn't attract me because of that, because it did, because the styles and dressing and all that and dress code and all that just spoke to me. And back then, in a very primitive way, I was like, oh, maybe among those people, I can express myself more. I mean, I already like black, I already like listen to this music, I already do this, that, and I definitely I'm exploring my identity. So maybe I will be more accepted among this culture rather than like a more, normie, let's say, culture, quote unquote, because I hate saying normie as well, in a unironic way. Because everyone can be whatever the fuck they want, I don't have a problem with that. So yeah, definitely what the guy says here is true. A lot of people found refuge in Goth, and that also played a role in, I guess, how come, how it came to be more prominent. And I mean, even to this point, it still does that, right? Because, for example, if you take your average femboy, what are they gonna be wearing on TikTok, right? Just black fishnets and thigh socks with like thigh high socks and, you know, chokers, and everything will be black and sexy and like kind of goth looking. So, they too kind of like find refuge in it at the end of the day. And let's face it, it's fucking hot, right? Not the femboys, I mean them too, but like the style is fucking hot. Always has been. And black is such a fucking easy color to like. So yeah, and romanticism and introspection, also something that is alluring to people. And so yeah, and also being labeled as if you want to be super cynical, also being labeled as alternative or not a normal person, quote unquote, that has a draw to it. You want to be different, right, kid? So there you go. If you want to be cynical, you can say that like some of the popularity can be attributed to people who just wanted to stand out and to just be different. Which, in all fairness, the majority of people in this culture, yeah, we're quite strange kids, okay? So yeah, always have been. So yeah, I guess it checks out. Anyway,
It's taken inspiration from punk in terms of its sexual nature. In the late 70s, Vivienne Westwood became the most influential designer within early UK punk.
holy shit. So whenever somebody wanted like the ultimate flex, right? At least in my city, of someone being part of the goth scene here, the goth culture, the ultimate flex would be to own an article of clothing designed, an original, obviously not a copy or whatever counterfeit, of Vivienne Westwood's creations. It was the ultimate flex, especially if it was a corset, if I remember correctly.
And inspired many of the trends that would seep their way into goth. Westwood's designs prominently used items such as the corset, which in the past were designed and
There you go, told you.
used to sexualize women by accentuating the curves and quite literally destroying a woman's ribs and insides. Although the corset was created with sexual intentions, it was seen as disgusting when actually viewed on a woman as opposed to being placed underneath a dress. Westwood took advantage of this, utilizing the corset as a statement piece to protest and take back the sexualization of women for decades. This became a common theme of punk that in turn made its way into goth fashion, inspiring many of the aspects that made girls extremely rich in the modern day. The fashion became an outlet for the mood set by the music. The punk offshoot utilized the angst and rage of 70s punk, although combined it with the atmospheres created in early Gothic literature. This in turn resulted in Victorian and Edwardian styles that were prominent during the birth of Gothic literature.
Yeah, a lot of people that I met were into, I think this is now called traditional goth or trad goth. I think that's how it's known now, where you're wearing like this kind of style, except of course, more goth, more goth. But yeah, yeah, it was. We had a few who would be into that. I was into that. I loved the aesthetic. I just loved it. But then, soon enough, I was infected with the fucking cyber stuff, and from there, I just never shook that off. And that's why you will hear me often refer to myself as a cyber goth, I guess, because that's the. I mean, maybe he will talk about it, right? Maybe he will talk about it, and I have to cover it. Less work for me while also streaming. Let's go. If he doesn't mention cybergoth, I will tell you what my perception of it is, at least.
being utilized amongst more punk inspired elements such as fishnets and heavy makeup. The makeup was specifically prominent, designed to make the wearer look like a goddamn vampire, although more realistically made them look like a Victorian child stricken with illness. Of course, every subculture needs a home base, a place where each individual
Oh my god. Oh my god. every Greek goth's dream was to go to London, go to the UK, not London specifically, go to the UK and spend a few days clubbing um, at places that had to do with bat and cave. Bat as in the creature, not your butthole, you fucking perverts. But yeah, and I'll be honest, get it. I fucking get it. And I think there were a couple of places in Athens, which is the city I live in, where they tried to kind of like, in a very scuffed way, like replicate the aesthetic of like such places. But I think the one that did it the best, ironically, was again like Underworld, so the place that I ended up going for a while.
can feel comfortable expressing themselves, and this would come in 1982 with the opening of a weekly club night named the Batcave in Soho. This allowed the subculture to slowly brew and
What ended up happening was that like a lot of not that there were too many, but like most of the goth places here would have Batcave nights, you know, where they would play like more older songs, and when I say older goth songs, and like they would play Bauhaus, they would play like that the shit the guy mentioned, and yeah, it was interesting, it was interesting. Anyway, just factoids, I guess.
gather mold within the underground. The club's door would be a hollowed out coffin with bin liners and fake spider webs hung from the walls and the ceilings. The club would prominently host singers integral to the genre and style of goth, such as Robert Smith, Nick Cave, Susie Sue, and the entirety of Bauhaus. It essentially became the birthplace for the most prominent incarnation of goth. The style became synonymous with the term, and goth had finally become a subculture. Although the club closed in 1985, the subculture would only spread from here, seeping out of England and into Europe and the United States thanks to a countercultural magazine named Propaganda. Propaganda magazine would document the origins of goth and describe its slow growth into a global phenomenon. This allowed the style to reach more eyes and ears across the globe, with the influences of various other cultural aspects and genres seeping their way into goth culture. This started in the 90s with cybergoth, which looks like this.
There he goes. Yeah, you get it. I wonder what he's gonna say about this, because this is like my fucking shit. Okay, I'm wondering.
And is incredibly stupid. The 90s also saw the
Fuck you. You're incredibly stupid. I personally love it. I personally love the aesthetic, and it's an aesthetic that was like absolutely embraced um, by future stuff. Like let's say, for example, by cyberpunk. It was completely embraced by that as a style. Like I think maybe the other way around. I'm not sure how old cyberpunk is as a term, but definitely, yeah. And If it looks stupid to you, then you can go fuck yourself. Easy as that. Or just be another kind of goth. Who the fuck cares? Nobody. I don't know why this guy is so fucking cynical. I don't like that about the way he's describing stuff. But hey, whatever. At least he mentioned it, but very briefly apparently. I mean, there isn't much to say about cybergoth. It's like, does it look like you belong in Cyberpunk 2077? Then you're doing it wrong. Does it look like you belong to some arbitrary, like futuristic version of goth that you yourself imagined? Then you're doing it right.
The rise of steampunk, which is essentially the Victorian elements of original goth fashion with a bunch of nuts and bolts glued on. Goth would then make its way to Japan with Gothic Lolita, which in typical Japan fashion takes the Gothic style and makes it perfect for PDF effects. These various Gothic offshoots began to warp what was commonly considered goth. This was only made more confusing by media representation, with the
I think he has it the other way around, but don't quote me on this because I'm not 100% certain. I think he has it the other way around. The goth Lolita thing, that, the way I remember it in my head, alright, which I could be wrong, as I said, was never a thing to do with like PDF file stuff, alright? As far as I'm concerned, at least in my closer circles, having a lolly, goth lolly style had nothing to do with like anything to do with age. Let me be clear about that. The people who were into that, and for a while I was also into that, were enjoying the dress style, right, and the clothing style of, how can I explain it? Like the goal wasn't to look like a kid, all right. It was to look like you know, Jesus, wording is hard. It's difficult to explain a mental image, but you would try to look. So remember the traditional goth style that he showed earlier? That, but even more freely and more sexy. Does that make sense? A little bit. So you would have super intricate short dresses with like quirky shoes, quirky heels that look like you know, fuck. So let's put it this way. I would say that the basis of it, like the bare bones of it, you could find in maid outfits. All right. But then you turn that to not just 11, but like to 20. And then you turn it into as goth as you can. All right. And that was the aesthetic of like goth Lolita. It had nothing to do with Japan. Nobody even cared what was going on in Japan in terms of style. So I think it's basically the Japanese culture that took that, and then because they have an infatuation with younger ages, and I'm sorry to say, but like it's just true, okay? I'm sorry. It's just culturally true. It's not me being a bigot or anything. I'm not implying anything about Japanese people, but like, let's face it, it is true, right? I mean, every person you see in anime is like 13 years old. I'm sorry. So, and keep that in mind. You fucking. Anyway, let's not go into that. And they appropriated that. So their version of goth, obviously, takes that and applies it into PDF file material. All right? Not the other way around. Like the way that people were doing it back then had nothing to do with that shit, with that fucking heinous dog shit, okay? Just to be clear. I don't think for the very long time that I've been very active in the scene that anyone ever saw the style of Gothic Lolita that people were bringing into the clubs or whatever as anything to do with younger ages. In fact, it was usually dared by people who were older, right? This style, and not by young people, because young people would either go for the trad goth or the military goth, at least in my city, right? Or cyber goth. Those were the three prominent ones, right? Alongside another style which was unique to Greece, which was a combination of like how basic bitches would dress, as we would call them, except then you start adding goth makeup and like total black, whereas normally it would be just regular ass fucking, you know, pink sweaters or whatever, and just blue jeans and like whatever, and you turn that into goth, and we call that like um, it doesn't translate well, but it would make sense if you're Greek. We call it like dog style. I can't. There is no translation, and that the origins of that is that because we would call these people, you know, the normal ass people who were just like super absolutely boringly normal ass bitches, normies. Okay, we would call them dogs. Don't even ask why. Okay, and then again, it doesn't translate. Like if you're Greek, you can understand it. And so you know that eventually, because some people would transition from that to goth because they found it cool, I guess, because black is cool or whatever. We made fun of them, which I'm not proud of, but like it was bad, honestly. And so we would call them that, you know, essentially dog goths. I think that's unique to Greece. I'm pretty sure it's unique to Greece, for real. Um, so yeah, I don't know what this guy is talking about. I may be wrong, and indeed, maybe Goth took it from Japan, but I just don't see it. I just don't see that because there was uh, no connection in anyone's mind, at least anyone I've ever talked to who was Goth, at least in Greece, whoever even mentioned Japan or, you know, outfits or styles or anything to do with Japan at all. So I'm not quite sure. I've never looked into it, and he might be right. But to my knowledge and my personal first-hand experience, it's just not true. I do know that later on, again, yeah, some Japanese cultures or subcultures started embracing goth more, which resulted in them, you know, turning their shit black. Okay, and then maybe that's why there is this weird misconception. Perhaps I don't fucking know, but I cannot agree for the life of me with what he's saying here. Nothing ever about goth has ever been, to the best of my knowledge, PDF file related ever. None of the styles that I've ever seen were ever meant to appeal to somebody who would be turned on by that. Like, fuck's sake. So I don't know. And again, like anyone who dared that style, because it was a very quirky style and very difficult to pull off as well, admittedly back then at least. Um, yeah, it was probably older people. Uh, you know, and no, they weren't trying to appear childlike at all. Not any more than Milgoth, you know, military goth trying to be political. Because also there is this misconception that like military goth means that you're basically secretly a fucking Nazi or something. No, do not make that mistake. No. Yeah, they embrace some of the aesthetics, none of the ideology. Just trust me on that one. Some might do, but those guys, trust me, the rest of us want nothing to do with them. And they are an extreme outlier. So saying that gothic Lolita style is comes from literally PDF file related stuff, oof, no. It's as insulting as, you know, saying that, oh, military goth is basically being Nazi but wearing black clothing. Like, no, 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 no. Don't go there. Do not even go there. You have no fucking clue what we're talking about. No, no, no. Don't go there. I think with both subjects, don't go there. Nobody, you know, Goth as a whole cannot be held responsible if, like, a nation that is already obsessed with younger ages found out about Goth and started incorporating. Like, yeah, you know. Uh, so I think he has it the other way around about this one, but again, I have my reservations, I may be wrong. But to my experience and knowledge, without having historically researched it, that is not the case. And nobody that I knew again ever fucking, you know, saw it that way. So I'm not sure what this guy is talking about, but whatever.
Film representation of Goth straying away from the femme fatale archetype and slowly portraying Goths as quirky outcasts that were meant to be seen as endearing as opposed to feared and overly sexualized. A clear example of this is Alison Reynolds from The Breakfast Club, which, although can be considered a more positive representation, further began to skew what Goth even was in the public eye. Despite the confusion, Gothic culture was still able to come back in a big way in the 2000s, although it was slightly different to simping over Robert Smith. Mainly because Robert Smith looks like this in the 2000s, it was more so simping over Peter Steele. All jokes aside, it was actually more so the culture and fashion blending with other popular alternative subcultures of the time, mainly heavy metal with bands like Typo Negative, Evanescence and Cradle of Filth, essentially being both goth and metal visually. The mid-2000s essentially saw everything that was even slightly related to alternative or heavy music being moulded into one big ball of clay, chucked to the label of counterculture and sold to you over the counter in a trendy new countercultural store such as Hot Topic. The record labels couldn't tell the difference, the store CEOs couldn't tell the difference, so why should you be able to tell the difference? This led to goth being marketed as a fashion trend targeted towards people outside of Susie and the Banshees listeners or Germanic tribe aficionados. This has caused a shockwave that still extends.
Again, about the history stuff, nobody I ever met or talked to, literally nobody. I've talked to a lot of people being a club owner. Nobody fucking gave a shit about the historical part. So I don't know what this guy's on about when he says, oh, it turned from like people trying to imitate those Visigoths. Like, nobody fucking did that. Nobody even cared about it, dude. What the fuck? Anyway.
To the modern day, the prevalence of 90s and 2000s countercultural movements such as grunge, new metal and pop punk / emo still ring true today and have a huge influence on modern day fashion and trends. This is their
the corn t-shirt. I mentioned it and there it is, inescapably. I love corn. I love that t-shirt.
therefore skewed the common definition of what a goth is. The early 2000s saw little differentiation in terms of media representation between various subcultures and styles that differed both visually and in terms of their rich history. Everything just became alternative, and instead of being targeted towards small secular subcultures on the fringes of society, it was marketed.
Funny thing, it was considered that like looking like this was like low level, and then as you evolved, you would look more like this, even in the 2000 plus, right? Even 2010 or whatever. And whenever, this is funny because whenever we would see somebody who started as a poser like this, because we would consider this like a little bit poser, this kind of like more generic style, like level 1 kinda, whenever they would go into hardcore stuff, like sporting a mohawk and finding like more like elegant stuff and like refining their style, we would celebrate. I would be like, oh dude, you upped your game, damn, you're rocking a mohawk and shit. That's how it was. No offense to the bunch of guys here, of course, because you gotta everything has a clumsy start. Like even my fucking start was clumsy as fuck. Okay, um, my start was like I would wear cargo pants which I wouldn't button, so it would be like let me just show you. Wait, at least it was fucking cargo pants, so I can that. But like, wait. So I will try to demonstrate with my MS Paint skills my first official like goth outfit for clubbing. So it would be like those weird like baggy cargo pants. I wasn't cross-dressing openly then, and I wouldn't button them. So like this part here, which normally would be like uh, like this, let's say, it wasn't like that. Instead, it was floppy, so it was just like this here, hanging like this. And instead of like buttoning it, I would take like don't even fucking laugh, okay? I can already hear you laughing, but by God, do not even dare. Uh, I'll have you know, it was quite actually well received. So well, let me correct it like this part here. So it would be floppy like that, and then I would take like a belt, but that belt would be just the same fabric as the cargo pants, and I would tie it here, and then it would hang like on the side, right, like this, and it would hold my pants up, and I would wear like a very skinny T-shirt, okay, with like this, let's say, and that was like, and of course like combat boots, obviously, heavy ones, um, and that was like my first. I would usually also wear like fishnet gloves or whatever in the choker, and that was my brand of like starter Daphne starter kit. And as you can see, as you can tell, it was already heading towards more um, futuristic and traditional kind of. Um, Fun fact: it would be torn here wildly, and my T-shirt was also ripped in places randomly, and that's because I used to wear this when I was training as well in martial arts, because it just worked wonderfully as a bottom and top for just practicing martial arts. It also had the black belt here. Fun fact: I would get shit for that. So what I would do after I was like talked to about that, I would replace that when I was in the dojo. I would replace it with a white belt that I had, or yellow, or orange belt, or red belt, or whatever else I got, or whatever else I had claimed with my fucking skills, and I would use that. But then if I was going out, like clubbing, I would replace it with my own like black belt there, just because it was black. I was trying to pose as like some kind of martial arts prodigy or something, but yeah, I preferred black on black. Um, and the belt wasn't necessarily like a martial arts one. It was just like honestly just fabric. This, as I said, the same fabric as like pants. I don't remember if these in particular had like side pockets here, which was very cool. I think it just had um, something. I don't remember what. They definitely had pockets like this, but I don't remember if it had like the quintessential side pockets that I'm making here with my MS Pen scales. Um, in terms of hair, and now this is where I want you to not laugh, but you will probably laugh. And again, on one hand, already heading towards the cyber stuff, but also on the other hand, my God, what was I thinking? But it was kind of cool in its own like stupid way. It was kind of cool. Um, where let's say that this is my face, okay? Although my face is probably gonna be uglier than that. Oh, you know what? I can show you on camera what I was doing. Actually, I shouldn't show you on camera because no, I'm not doing that anymore. Sorry. But let's say that this was my face, okay? With my like stupid eyes here and like my mouth. Okay, just for reference. Um, so the way I would have my hair is like I would tie them here in a side tail. Okay, one which I usually dyed either this color, but a lot darker, or just black. And at one point also, I went red, which sucked. I didn't like that. So you can imagine that. So yeah, that was my starter kit. Okay. Oh, and of course, how can I forget eyeliner? How could I forget? You know. And if I wanted to use lipstick, obviously it would be black, and the eyeliner was black. And so you can imagine that shit as you want. And this is also how I was during my psychology studies years in the American college here in Athens. Which, needless to say, um, turned heads, not in a positive way. But yeah, yeah. But let's go on.
Fringes of society, it was marketed towards literally anyone who enjoyed alternative music. This is when we get to the modern day, where the goth label is utilized to describe people with a wide range of different styles and influences. Although modern day goth culture is still related to music, it's not the same as it was in the 70s. Goth e-girls aren't listening to modern post-punk bands, they're listening.
Listen, supposedly, Goth, quote unquote, and I'm using it very loosely, e-girls and femboys and whatnot, we don't even count this. Or let me say it this way, you shouldn't even count that as goth. I'm sorry. It's just a person who just decided that black is sexy and is just gonna wear black and accommodate or appropriate rather, or misappropriate certain elements like chokers and fishnets. That's all it is. Nothing to it. There's absolutely nothing to it. So ironically, when you say, "Oh, I would like a goth girlfriend," you have no idea what you're talking about. You really just have no fucking idea what you're talking about. And if you do find a person like that, they also have no idea what goth is. Just loosely, oh, I'm wearing fishnets, I'm goth, Not to say, of course, that fishnets weren't prominently used. They were. They still are. But, it's not the same, dude. It really, really, really isn't the same. Anyway, going on.
To any trendy subsection of heavy or alternative music, stretching from emo to pop to metal and punk. Don't get me wrong, traditional goths do still exist and typically receive the label romantic goth, although they're often found at festivals and gatherings specifically for gothic culture. This section is not prevalent in the slightest when comparing it to the internet's usage of the term goth, which has seen significant prevalence with seedy and negative connotations within the past decade or so. Fashion has always been a gateway into somebody's personality. What an individual is dressed in can define whether you see that person as attractive, likable, or disgusting. Regardless of how detached from images you claim yourself to be, this just simply is the case. This intense judgment based on fashion has only gotten worse due to the prevalence of social media. Now there's gorpcore, opium, cottage cheesecore, more styles of dress and fashion have spread with inherent traits.
Goblin core. Are you serious, my dude? Let me see this again.
Opium, cottage cheesecore.
Yeah, cottage cheese. Okay, cottage core, I'm aware of. Goblin core? Goblin core? Are you serious? Ah, okay, whatever. Whatever, okay, goblin core, okay. I mean, even cottage core, I found it such a fucking stupid term. Just sticking core in front of everything doesn't make it okay, okay?
More styles of dress and fashion have spread, with inherent traits being immediately given to anybody that fits into that style of clothing. When it comes to music-related styles such as goth, crust, or mincecore, an entire subculture is immediately attached. Your first assumption is based on what they listen to, what activities they partake in, and how they live their lives. This just makes sense. It's easy to look at me, for example, and make a generalized guess on what I may be listening to or doing on a daily basis, and unless you guess slam metal and staring at the inside of my four-wall flat, eating scrambled eggs and playing blast beats, you'd probably be wrong, but I digress. This concept seems to be lost in translation when it comes to the goths.
No, I wouldn't say that this guy is goth. I don't think so. He strikes me more as ever since the beginning of the video, he strikes me more as like kind of, and you have to understand the lens through which I'm gonna say this, and that lens is like decades old, right? Because I'm 43 now. So this guy strikes me as kind of metal, but not really. Like there was a point. So like clumsy new metal. And what I mean with clumsy new metal is like looking like Skater Boy, but like with black clothing. So not exactly new metal, but like kind of going for it, but very early into it. That's the kind of style that this guy, I would say, has. I wouldn't call it goth just because of the piercings or, I mean, he doesn't really look goth to me, at least not to my eyes. But anyway,
subculture. Upon viewing the typical goth girl, or even in some cases goth guy, most people don't assume they are a big fan of Susie and the Banshees and spend their time learning post-punk bass lines or studying 1800s architecture. The assumption usually strays towards something sexual. You've all heard it: step on me goth mummy, I need me a goth GF, drag me into the basement, let me take a good whiff of your feet.
which is sad. It's sad because it's like literally degrading the culture itself and the people who follow it more genuinely, including myself, I would say, though I don't study architecture and I give a fuck about that. But like, yeah, the way that it has been misappropriated by a lot of people is it's just disheartening. It's not like I think about it actively, but it is kind of disheartening. And whenever I will find somebody who's like, oh, I'll ask them in typical Daphne fashion, what manner of creature are you then? And their answer is like, oh, I'm just a goth femboy. I'm just your typical goth femboy. And I'm like, oh, so, that's cool. And then the moment comes when you're on Discord and you're exchanging music, for example, and you throw them some really good shit and they're like, "Oh, that's old. I don't listen to that." And I'm like, "Okay, then what do you listen to?" And they just reply with like some generic ass anime opening kind of thing that just doesn't do anything for me. I'm like, facepalm, bro. But okay, whatever. And that's not to diss on anyone's like music tastes, but it's to diss on people going like, "Oh, I'm goth," and then going like, "What do you listen to?" Anime openings. Awkward silence.
Trust me, I've seen it all. I had to place my algorithm into an extremely dark place to research and find clips for this video. The most common connotation of goth in the modern day has become extremely sexual, although the worst kind of sexual, chronically online sexual. So how have deodorant deniers shifted the common idea of goth from a punk subculture offshoot obsessed with eyeliner and Robert Smith to a hyper-sexualized figure that will drag you into a dark, dim basement before dominating you and proceeding to make you a warm glass of milk and your favorite brand of seed oil-ridden tendies? Well, for some reason, as the 2010s shifted into the 2020s and things became increasingly cursed to the point where even I find it hard making jokes about it, the idea of receiving a goth GF became a mainstream meme to the
That person as well.
making jokes about it. The idea of
That person as well. I would be hard pressed to call a goth. I would call her probably if I was like gossiping with my group, we would say, "Oh, that's a little bit poser like." That's what we would say. But go to be like, I don't know, like people have such a weird idea of it. If I don't know, it's just a weird idea, honestly. Anyway, let's go on.
of receiving a goth GF became a mainstream meme to the point where finance bros and gilets who have never even clicked on a Pinterest image of a gargoyle are seeking out their perfect goth GF. This may make zero sense to individuals actually aware of goth's deep subcultural roots, although it can be easily explained by the early 2000s countercultural sludge I discussed earlier. As the lines between subgenres and cultures become blurred as a result of mainstream meddling, the common consensus of what something is changes. Most people can't be f***ed to research the history of goth culture, so they're just going to assume it means a certain thing based on the mainstream media and common representation they've seen. These people aren't interested in researching the innate differences between first wave emo, scene queen and goth. They saw a woman with big tit, black lipstick and pink hair and went awooga awooga. Online culture has degraded.
Yeah, too true. And no, I don't want to sound like I'm gatekeeping either. You do you. If you want to be covered in tattoos and like all that shit, yeah, you do you, dude. But just there are upper and lower limits, where you can call yourself something. and that goes for gender as well. There are upper and lower limits within you can claim that you are something, beyond which, in either direction, you're opening yourself to at least some constructive criticism about your self-image. Since you bring it up, assumedly, you do, then you do, open up to some criticism. That's what I'm gonna say, as politely as I can. And that doesn't go just for what kind of culture you think you are. It also goes for like other things, like gender, for example, or sexuality even. Which again, I'm just stating that, like, just you can't be, at least in my opinion, because like we're talking about my opinion now, right? And my opinion can be wrong according to you. I'll still share it because that's how I just feel. That's just how I feel. You can't be like 3 meters tall and over like over 150 pounds, or kilos rather, not pounds, and like bearded man bear thing, who has never even experimented, never even owned an article of clothing that is like of the opposite gender, and you can say, oh, I'm definitely a woman. I'm not gonna deny you your feelings, but I am going to offer my view on it and discuss it and see if that's the case or not. That's all I'm saying. And it can very well be the case that you're feeling that way, in which case you're gonna get the constructive criticism I mentioned. Like, dude, if you really want to do that, why not shave the beard? Why not like take a few steps to better express yourself, as opposed to keeping it as a fantasy in your head and just stating it whenever asked, just because people are lenient lately, because then, and I want you to understand this, then you are misappropriating certain things, right? And that is generally not good. It's misappropriation is not good, especially if the motive behind it is to is some kind of gain. In this case, for example, a malicious type of gain would be um, um, getting somebody to be intimate with you, or even worse, to get involved with you romantically, when, for example, they've stated, I'm definitely looking for X, Y, and Z, but you're not fulfilling any of the criteria for being X, Y, and Z. You just say so, you know. Um, and again, that can be lenient, obviously, because people can feel a certain way, but maybe because of circumstances they can't literally reach that far. But yeah, sometimes an honest will and motivation to eventually achieve it also counts. I'm not a fucking bigot or gatekeeper. Even a genuine, but genuine, want, it counts. It matters. But you can't just be oh, okay, and in the case of Goth, it's the same. Like in any culture, you can't be like, I'm into loli, like Gothic Lolita, not into loli, but like Gothic Lolita. And then I ask you, have you ever even been in a Goth club? And you go like, no. Do you even know any bands? Like, do you even like, nope, nope, nope. And if you keep, like, there's gonna come a point where if you keep saying no, then I have to tell you at one point, well, then you're just thinking that you are that. Or you're thinking that you would have liked to be that. You're not, but you're I don't know what you're doing, but you're not. But if instead it was like, oh yeah, I just, I want to try it, but I can't. I don't have any dresses, and I'm shy to buy. I will be like, okay, let's go shopping together, or what, try one of my dresses on, whatever. See if you like that. That is genuine. That is literally just fine. Because you're genuinely going for it. You're trying, even with baby steps. You're trying. And it's the same with sexuality, right? And gender. Like, I'll give you an extreme example. You meet somebody, they tell you, oh, definitely, I'm trans, I'm female, and all that. All right, how would I address you then? And they go, oh, he, him. What? Didn't you just say female? So there are upper and lower limits, right? And the same with Goth. Like, and maybe the Goth Lolita example was, I don't know, like kind of like bad for you if you are one of those people who believes like Gothic Lolita is tied to pedophile, which it is not. Let's use another example. You can't say you're punk, all right, but then you can't even name a single band, or you've never ever had anything to do with that, or like, then you're just misappropriating it, right? And in a similar sense, you know, if you're just wearing black fishnets and a choker, and then somebody asks you, "Are you goth?" and you go like, "Yes." In All right, you have like literally 3 or 4 articles of clothing that you like wearing, but you're not goth though, and that's okay. You don't have to be accepted. You don't have to be anything to be accepted, right? You really don't. But like, don't be deluded about it either, and don't make statements that are um, false, because that makes you more or less a liar or a poser. Nobody wants that. It's kind of bad for you. And people like enabling people to be like that are basically just promoting quite a bad thing, I guess, in my opinion. And I think it's personal to anyone what kind of upper and lower limits they themselves define this appropriation within. So you can't really, which that sounded like a word salad, but what I'm trying to say is that, like, it's also a bit subjective. So essentially my point is, this is my view of it, and obviously I'll have my upper and lower limits as to what I can, say is this or isn't this, whatever this is. And that's subjective. Like, you might have a lot more lenient views on it. And it's also healthy to explore how flexible you can be with those things, because that's how you discover your own tastes and your own, like, styles and whatever, and sexuality and whatnot. That's healthy to explore that, I guess, in my opinion, at least. I don't know. But there's definitely gonna be a point where you're gonna hit it and be like, beyond that point, or below that point, or above that point, that definition doesn't stand anymore, for me. And so then when somebody is outside of that, you will debate them on it. You will be like, okay, so explain to me how this is true for you, which I think is healthy, discussion, basically. But I know that, like, at the same time, somebody who is cynical can tell you, oh, you're just gatekeeping, or oh, you just don't accept people as they are, or oh, who are you to say that this person isn't a man or a woman or anything in between. I think that's personal to everyone. I think there's no strict definition, you know? I know people, for example, who are like, oh, if you want to be addressed as a man, then you must be hairy. You must have lots of body hair, for example. That's their personal, one of their personal uh, lower and upper limits, right? Beyond that, they won't agree that they can refer to you or see you or view you as a man, for example. And to you, that might be toxic, but that's why I'm saying it's like absolutely subjective. And usually in these cases, if your shit doesn't match and you've tried to debate it and nothing good comes out of it, I think at that point you're probably not going to be a good fit for that person, um, on certain levels, and I guess that becomes your own issue of do I want to be around that person or not, because that person is never gonna view me as such and such, because of our very differing, like, again, like limits, right, and definitions. And that reminds me, for example, that I had stopped talking to a relative of mine because no matter what, they just refuse to view me as what I feel like, which is, well, female. And so not only that, but they would also use my dead name constantly, no matter what. And so I stopped talking to that person, and it's been a very long time. But now that it's New Year's Eve and all that, and Christmas, of course, I opened my fucking decaying Facebook to check something that I wanted, which, Jesus, every time I open Facebook, every now and then, I'm like, dude, this still exists. Anyway, and I see a message from them, from her, basically, going like, "Hello, dead name. Merry Christmas. If you want to catch up, I'm free." Why the fuck would I want to catch up with you? Like, why the fuck would I want to catch up with you? Like, seriously. And that's how that ties in. Like, you have to decide whether or not another person's limits and definitions matching yours or not matching yours will define your contact, right? You have the right to not have that contact. You don't have to subject yourself even to my views. You don't even have to agree with what I just, discussed in the last like 15 minutes. It's just my opinion. And not everyone is going to have the same opinion. But to bring it back to this video, I think that right now, 90% of what you see on social media presented as Goth has no fucking right to be called that in any capacity. And it's kind of, as I said, it's kind of disheartening because, like, you know, it's the same kind of disheartening. And again, like, that's just my subjective opinion, and you can hate me for it. I guess I don't give a fuck. If somebody who is into drag, right? And it's this type of drag that is like, with a beard, but like with a makeup and a dress and fake boobs, fake ass, and like this fucking shitty attitude that some of them might have. And they go like, oh, I'm trans. No, you're not. Like, this is misappropriation to me. Like, you have nothing to do with trans. You're basically just literally fucking satirical about people who are trans. Like, at this point, like, you're just a shock factor puppet. There's nothing else to you. And saying that you're trans just to fit in and be more accepted, I think it's kind of cheating. It's like a fucking contra cheat code right there. And you don't get a free pass, not from me at least. And I don't think that it's a good image to represent like trans people, because trans and drag are so far from each other, you have no fucking idea. So saying that damages the perception of people of trans, people. The perception that people have on trans people is what I'm trying to say. Words are hard, okay? Because now they will think that, like, whenever I say I'm trans, for example, or anyone else, I'm actually just like a huge dude with fake boobs and a beard and makeup. And I just have a screechy voice, and I act in a what's the word? Poignantly? Poignantly? What's the fucking word? Wait. I'm gonna Google that shit. Sharp or pungent? Yeah, I will use that word. That I'm a person that has these values. And I'm like, sharp, you get the idea. You get what I'm trying to say, right? But I'm not. I'm just a regular ass fucking girl. That's it. There's nothing else to it. I'm just like, I'm just a regular ass she here. That's it. I don't go out in fucking glitter and all that shit. I don't know. And I don't have a styled beard, but also fake boobs. I have my own boobs, thank you very much. and I'm just minding my fucking business, and I'm not looking to make a spectacle of myself, or parody women or parody trans people. I just I'm not parodying anyone. I'm just being myself. So, associating, for example, in this example, associating drag with trans, no, you don't fucking do that. Okay, no, not in my friends group at least. Okay, you just don't do that shit, because then I can't talk to you. Simple as that. Like, if that's your view, no, I don't agree. I'm sorry. I cannot, honestly. And so that's an example of like lower and upper limits. Like, a drag queen um, of that style and demeanor, let's say, saying, "Oh, I'm trans," I'm gonna be like, "No, girl, no," or dude, or whatever gender you want to use. You're nothing even close to trans. You have no fucking clue. You just have no fucking clue. So yeah, again, that's to show that, for example, people are different, and that's fine. And obviously, on my stream, you will hear my opinions, and you will hear me talk about things through my perspective, with my lower and upper limits, obviously, and you don't have to agree with them. But in this case, for better or worse, there's no correction to be made, because these are very personal criteria, if you will. But I don't like calling them criteria. Um, that's why I use the whole thing of like limits within which I will call something A or B, or I won't call something A or B, and limits within which I will debate people on why they think something is A or B or isn't A or B. I hope all this fucking essay made sense, because I'm moving on.
The way in which we communicate with each other, with the awooga awooga being a common example. This extends to friendships and socialization with heinous applications like Discord, join mine by the way, and even core aspects of our species and humanity with dating apps. Dating apps are pretty heinous overall, and for some reason, an alternative or quote unquote goth girl increases the potential degeneration tenfold. Any girl that even happens to have a septum piercing will receive consistent messages from men or even women encouraging them to ruin their lives in one way or another, or partake in an outwardly sexual act. This clearly connotes that the typical goth girl is packaged with a sprinkling of overtly negative mental health issues, with the stereotype obviously stemming from the negative emotions portrayed in a lot of the music consumed by the typical alternative individual, as well as the media portrayal of first wave goth. This obviously becomes harmful when a goth girl is simply trying to live their life and is unable to escape the unhinged label, regardless of whether the person is suffering from mental health problems or not. This may seem like just the fault of crusty male gooners, but it doesn't seem to be the case. During my research, which involved attempting to mold my Instagram Reels algorithm into a goth girl lover's paradise, 70 to 80% of the memes and posts I saw actively promoting the negative stereotypes surrounding the typical goth girl were created, posted, and encouraged by women, clearly in an
Yeah, by like, it doesn't have gender. This has no gender. Misinformed people and people who are trying to take a bite of that fucking pie, we will promote it. Yeah, what's mysterious about that? The thing is that this is a fallacy here, from Kulia, because the reason they're promoting it, the reason everyone is promoting it, and especially girls and especially femboys, is because of gooners. So it doubles back down into, why are they doing it though? Even though they're the ones doing it the most and not the actual gooners themselves. Well, it's because they're doing it for the gooners. Because they want that gooner money. Alright? Alright? Jesus fucking Christ, I thought I fucking dropped that. That's why they're doing it. And that's actually relevant relevant to the other video we were watching earlier. With that kind of culture. Put one and one together, and there is no mistake that the reason this is happening, even though it's not actively happening by them, the reason it's happening is because people are trying to appeal to the gooners, therefore it's happening for the gooners, maybe not by them, but make no mistake, that's the target audience. Alright? Because that's where the dough is. Okay? So yeah, I think the guy is wrong in what he's saying. Even though he's right technically.
attempt to divert traffic to an page. It seems like the aesthetic has been taken by people who aren't interested in the culture, apart from, of course, having Sex Tape by Deftones appear on their Spotify Wrap. They just utilize the style to sell a certain product, with that product just happening to be extremely sexual content. Although the goth culture is still thriving in the background with healthy scenes and festivals encouraging the traditional subculture, the mainstream idea of goth is becoming overcrowded with individuals utilizing a subculture that has become incredibly sexual in an attempt to sell a product. Goth has completely degraded into a sexual subculture as opposed to something that traditionally didn't see much sexualization outside of the clothing-based protests utilized in the traditional punk offshoot. So why has goth become so sexualized? Well, there are plenty of clues to look towards within the subculture's history. The first example can of course be the fact that one of the first
No, bro, no. You're not gonna do that. You're not gonna say that the over-sexualization and objectification of goth individuals and of goth as a culture, and the tying of it to being a literal TikTok slut, whether you're a male or female, doesn't matter, or anything between, you're literally a TikTok slut. You cannot say it's legitimate because of the image of the, goth femme fatale of the whatever decade you choose. You cannot fucking go there. You cannot go there. You cannot say that's legitimate routes. The only the only roots this has is basically the power of boners, okay? And the fact that, like, black clothing, it just appeals. I don't fucking know. You go and study that, okay? I'm not gonna sit here and explain to you why black leather or black clothing is seen as deviant, therefore sexy. I'm not gonna go into that. That's like such a fucking dude, that's such a fucking social discussion. Like, I'm not gonna do it right now. But you cannot fucking sit there and tell me that this is a legitimate thing and that goth itself is responsible partly, because it's not. I'm sorry. Like, to say that is the same as saying, oh, that girl got groped, well, she shouldn't wear a miniskirt. No, you fucking ignorant bitch. That's not how it works. So the fact that he's gonna try and do that is gonna disappoint me. Like, if he goes for that, I'm gonna be so disappointed in this guy.
representations of goth within a visual medium was a character under the femme fatale archetype, which is inherently sexual in nature and primarily designed for the male gaze. We can then shift our very...
Nah, you can go fuck yourself, like, for real. I don't care what you think. No single actual goth person I've ever met, and I've met a lot of them, and, in real life and otherwise, dude, they don't want to be male gazed at. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to be catcalled. What the hell? No. What are you doing? Are you siding with fucking gooners now? Really? That's disgusting. Like, something can have a sexual appeal without that being the main reason for why it exists in the form it exists. Like, have you not heard about nude art, for example? Have you not heard about that? Do you think that's because because some people might view it inherently sexual? Do you think that models that pose for nude art are literal sluts then? Because that's the same vein of logic. Because if that's your claim, you're fucking ignorant. I'm sorry. Like, what the hell? I didn't expect that. Anyway, let's keep watching, but I completely disagree with this. It's nobody's fault other than literally the gooners and the people who target the gooners and, like, take advantage of them. That goth is, like, so fucking seen as just being a slut in black clothing. But let's see. I mean, let me tell you, like, for example, one point, right? One example. Wave Gothic Treffen back then. I'm in Leipzig, and in the grounds of the convention, let's say, where all the concerts were taking place and everything, you were not allowed to stare at people with more exposed body parts, let's say. You weren't allowed to gawk at them or approach them. Like, there were literal warning signs that, like, you should not do that, you will be removed from the grounds. Because the purpose is not that. The purpose is to express some stuff, some stylistic choices and whatnot. So the fact, for example, that that person would have, black duct tape over their nipples, but would otherwise be bare-chested, doesn't mean that they're a fucking, sex worker. And so you shouldn't approach them as such and go like, oh, you have your boobs exposed, okay, let me touch or let me see. Like, no. And there is a reason for that. All right? So, yeah, here we go with all right again. Holy shit. So, I completely disagree with this guy. I'm sorry.
Male gaze to early punk, which utilised overtly sexual themes to protest against the status quo within Britain at the time. Aspects of this then seeped into early goth culture, with many of the prominent fashion items being based on clothing that traditionally had sexual connotations. We can also, of course, look towards
It can traditionally have sexual connotations, but we can take that and use it to express a different style that then has removed itself far from, like, its roots enough that you can't use this argument anymore. Another good example is, again, military goth, right? You can't say, this style of trench coat was predominantly used by the fucking SS or whatever, okay? So that means that, like, I'm allowed to now call you a certain thing. You're not. I'm sorry, you're not. Like, fucking wake up, dude. No, sorry, I completely disagree with this. Like, that kind of made me mad, actually.
social media and a certain style of, let's say, content becoming increasingly more acceptable when attempted to analyze why the everyone is so goddamn horny all the time. This ever-increasing sexual culture, alongside connotations that link goth and alternative women to sexual aspects due to a misunderstanding of its deep history, has resulted in a culture that is just deeply sexualized. This all, of course, raises issues in terms of both the health of the goth subculture and, of course, more overarching problems in relation to how people are treated based on the way in which they look. I see the subcultural issues as less prevalent. As I've mentioned previously, aspects of traditional goth culture are still very much alive today, with people alive during the subculture's birth, as well as newcomers who are well educated and appreciative of the history, continuing to give back and show immense passion towards the scene. This scene has, of course, strayed away from the music somewhat, although let's be honest, punk wouldn't be punk without the safety pins and Adam's apple, and goth wouldn't be goth without the fishnet tan lines and permanently deformed rib cages. It just so happens that punk saw much more development musically in the decades since its birth than goth has. I think the more prevalent issue is more so caused.
I also disagree with that. I mean, goth itself has been explored a lot musically, so I don't think I agree with what he said here either. Also, the broken rib cages, come on, dude. Nobody makes corsets like they used to make them back then, and they don't use them for the same purpose. Nobody fucking wants their fucking intestines compressed into a tiny ball anymore, but we do use corsets because if you make them a certain way, they're not harmful, and that was easy to discover. And so, yeah. I mean, there are some outliers which will. I mean, I knew a person, for example, who was into that actually, like, using tighter and tighter corsets and, like, for the purpose of shaping their body, but that was like one person in like 500. So I don't think that can be said anymore. Like, this practice is intertwined with goth. No, not at all. Corsets are, yes, but even their design has changed to a point where it's safe to use. So I don't know, man.
Caused by our continuous evolution into an online world as a society. Only the boldest of motherfuckers would go up to a girl with black lipstick in public and start furiously barking. But on dating apps, it's as easy as literally getting out of bed, although that task.
He's also wrong in that. There were often problems with, like, people who would just jump into the club with a specific purpose of hooking up with the goth chick. and we threw them out. We literally had security immediately just escort them out. So no, that was happening before social media as well, and to ours, like, it wasn't rare. It was very common. It was very common. Every other fucking Saturday, every other fucking Friday that I would go out, there would be this issue of, we as a group, because we were tight, honestly, um, we would spot them, and then we would go. Even when I was the owner, they would get spotted, and people would go and be like, "Hey, usually it's the barman or the person handling PR, whatever, and they would be like, "Hey, these guys, they just have no reason to be there." And even after the abolishment, let's say, of getting dress coded, because it used to be dress coded in Greece, right? You couldn't go into certain places looking in a certain way. So it was the same for Goth. Like, if you would go to a Goth club, you were expected to be wearing at least something relevant. I'm not saying it's bad, but I will say that even after the abolishment of that, when it was more difficult to screen people, those who were obviously there just to quote unquote, with a goth chick for the night, um, we would find ways, the security would find ways to tell them, hey, you shouldn't be here, at least not for that purpose. Like, it's not allowed. You're gonna have, there's a nice bar down the road where you can find, like, that they have cool chicks there. You go and fish there, okay? So, we had that kind of thing. So no, it was common. Obviously more common now because of social media. Just as, he's right on that one. But it's not like that didn't used to happen. No, it happened a lot. It's why, for example, in the festival that I went to in Germany, there had to be warning signs. There had to be, like, some fucking policing of that shit, because it was common. I mean, yeah, makes sense.
Task is probably quite hard for these motherfuckers. Most subcultures that can be sexualized in the modern day are being sexualized. You see it in the hippie movements, punk movements, even country and traditional farmers are being sexualized. It's just a fact that sex sells. It always has, it always will. And it is just an unfortunate fact that aspects of Goth's history has resulted in it receiving a more sexual label than other subcultures, whether that label is ignorant or not. Although this is a problem, Goth culture will stay alive. The original subculture is cool enough to always have fans and appreciators, and it just so happens that members of the real subcultures are incredibly passionate and appreciative and will always give back to the Goth scene. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is where I present the Goth girl paradox. If a modern Goth girl took a time machine back to 300 AD, entered a Visigoth territory, and immediately reduced the...
Nobody would fucking do that if it was possible. Entertaining this guy's parameters, for the example, assuming that could happen. Nobody would care to go in that age and be like, hey, I'm a god. You can't say, oh, there is a paradox because modern goths, if they went to the Visigoths and the Vikings and whatnot and were like, hey, I'm a goth, nobody would do that. The example is moot. Like, it's a horrible example. Is that the paradox he was talking about? Is that the paradox? No. A more fair thing to say is, would a modern goth, right, stepping into a time machine and landing in the 70s, 80s, would they be ostracized? Let me tell you right now, there is no paradox, because they wouldn't be. In fact, I think they would be celebrated. So I think this guy's whole video was pointless, but it was good research, even though in certain places I have my reservation, my very vocal and clear reservations about some of the things he said, like 3 or 4 things he said. Otherwise, it's well researched, it seems to me. But yeah, I took issue with some of the things he said, and straight up disagreed factually with some others. And I may be wrong on those others, but the things that I took issue with, I'm gonna die on that hill. Like, I'm gonna die on each and every one of those hills that I had an issue with. I'm sorry, as a goth person myself. So yeah, and this paradox that he's inventing just doesn't make any sense, because nobody, even the goths from the 70s and the 80s or whatever, would care to go to some kind of imaginary they're not imaginary, but some kind of like Viking tribe and say, "Hey, I'm you, but from the future." We're not them from the future. This is a bad example. This is a horrible example. There is no paradox here.
The morale of the Warriors due to her unstoppable yap session, which ranged from topics such as Knocked Loose being on Jimmy Kimmel to the price of black lipstick. Would this reduce the Visigoth's power, aura, and motivation?
I won't watch more because he's just delusional at this point. And I also have to tell you, yes, attire and makeup was discussed, but at the same time, most of the discussions you would have with any goth person of the scene that at least I belong to would be usually deep philosophical, poetic, romantic shit, and just chilling like regular ass people. And nobody was like, oh, my favorite topic is like how expensive black lipstick is. No, no, no. This guy is extremely cynical right now. I don't even know why. Like, can you show me on the doll where the bad goths hurt you, dude? Because like you're just damn. Okay, I'm not gonna watch more. It was interesting. This is my 3 hours of Saturday stream. And since Katya is not here to play Vampire Survivors, I think I'm gonna call it for now. I'm just gonna chill. But not before. I thank you for watching, and I hope you found my takes on the two videos we watched at least entertaining, if not interesting, to think about. Yeah. All right, cool. I had fun watching both videos, even if the second one was kind of, I don't know. I don't fucking know. I see here that the same guy has made a video saying punk has a poser problem. Yeah, well, Goth also has a huge poser problem, always did. That's true. But I really appreciate that I got to hang out with you again on a Saturday. And it was nice Saturday morning. And now it's Saturday, midday. And so I'm gonna look for something to eat, something for lunch. And with that, I will leave you. I will see you on Monday, where I have no idea what the fuck I'll stream about. But there are many candidates. Fortunately, some good ideas on what to do. But I'll decide on the spot instead of like telling you I'm gonna do this or that. Yeah, stay safe. Be cool. Take care of yourself. And, be chill. Okay? Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll catch you on Monday. Kisses.